Number 5, an Air Force landing cover-up. So, Quinn Nelson, who wants his location to stay private out of fear for his safety, knew a girl whose dad was stationed at an Air Force base in his state. At the time, there were 2 Air Force bases and 1 Marine Air Station, so he feels pretty comfortable making the story known with those details. Quinn says he went to go see the girl and stay with her family over a weekend, arriving on the Friday, just in time for family dinner. He and the girl decided to walk over to the base movie theater to enjoy some private time, and afterwards were walking back to the family's quarters in the company of many Air Force fellow, tweens and families who also saw the movie. He said that as they were walking, Air Force Air Police personnel began driving down the base housing streets, ordering the theater goers to the nearest base housing residence. A siren or tone was wailing from somewhere, along with a code being repeated that Quinn refuses to name for, safety. The crowd didn't put up any kind of resistance and began moving where they were directed, as if this was a normal occurrence, something Quinn observed as being weird to him, but he wasn't going to be the only one putting up a fuss. When the group he was walking with arrived at a house, his girlfriend, without knocking, just pushed the door open and they all walked in. Quinn said the members of the household were pulling the window drapes closed, setting out folding chairs, offering water, acting like this was like a planned gathering instead of a random occurrence in panic. About an hour or so later, the air police again went up and down the streets giving the all clear, and somewhere the same siren or tone was sounding. Later that night, his girlfriend's family told him he must never tell anyone about what had happened on the base, saying that this was an occurrence that would happen when UFOs would land on base property or nearby, something that was apparently very common on Air Force bases. Anyone want to let me know in the comment section if that's true? Because consider me intrigued. Number 4, a gray alien abduction. Grant Rollins, a resident of suburban Maryland, describes himself as a fairly normal bachelor, living in peace until this all went down in December of 2017. He woke up at 1:30 in the morning to the sound of a break-in and went to the bedroom door to confront the intruder, but was suddenly rendered unconscious as he touched the doorknob. He woke up naked and cold in a pill-shaped glass container. The lid was open, so he was able to stumble out onto the floor around the container, and described feeling sluggish and barely able to walk. But he thought he'd been kidnapped, so he was urgently trying to find an escape route. The room he was in was made of mostly concrete and was plastic with fluorescent lights. He managed to limp into a hallway that was tunnel-shaped and followed a blue glow coming from down the hall. As he walked, he came out of the tunnel and entered a large cylindrical room lined with vehicles on hooks along the walls. They were human vehicles, so mostly Japanese and German cars and motorcycles, but some vehicles were clearly from the American military. In the center of the room was what looked like a metal tree that was 6 stories tall with glowing blue leaves. Now as Grant stumbled closer, he realized the tree was actually a large metal cylinder, and the leaves were capsules similar to the one he'd woken up in, except these still had people inside them and were radiating a neon blue glow. As he paid more attention to higher up in this tree, Grant noticed some blue wires moving around in the dark area towards the ceiling. These clumps of wires suddenly floated down towards him and turned to reveal that they had faces in them, each with 2 large dark eyes and narrow slits for noses and mouths. He's compared them in appearance to the typical gray alien face from popular media, with 2 of the faces frowning and 1 smiling. Grant passed out once again, waking up later face down in a puddle of his own drool on a glass floor. He was too tired to get up and barely able to tilt his head up just enough to take a look around. The room was circular, about 150 square feet in size, and a bright, sterile white color. One of the tentacled creatures was in the room, but was busy facing away and operating a set of strange controls with no buttons or levers. Out of exhaustion, Grant's head fell back down, and through the glass floor saw that they had risen out of a deep black hole that was dug into a grassy plain where a rock-shaped lid closed around the hole to cover it. This is when he realized he was in a spacecraft and had actually been in a silo of some sort that's here on Earth somewhere. Grant passed out for the last time and was awoken by the sensation of being dropped back head first onto his bed with a hard thud. He checked his phone for the time and saw that it was around 6:30 in the morning. Later that day, he found an object that had been inserted and cauterized into his right leg and experienced a run-in with some men in black suits within 4 days of the abduction. Grant claims that he never believed in abductions, UFOs, men in black, anything out of the ordinary before that day, but now he doesn't have a choice in the matter and is annoyed that there's no official place to get legitimate information or help on the subject. I'm hoping that after talking about this, I don't see any men in black on my way home today. Number 3, the Veski Abduction. So 34-year-old Vladimir Voronezky and his wife 29-year-old Olga were at home with their very young son Arthur and their daughters Vanessa and Angelica one night. Olga had asked the daughters to run an errand, and while returning home, both saw an unusual object in the sky, rushed home, and told their family that they had seen a flying star. When the adults went outside, they saw a distant hovering object in the sky that seemed to move and change shapes. Olga managed to take a photo of the object with her cell phone, but the photo only shows a yellow spot or elongated strip with a black background. The family went back inside, had supper, and went to bed. And while I would love to end this here, y'all know better about how this is about to go. At around 2 a.m., Vladimir suddenly awoke and saw that the whole room was lit by a whitish-violet light, and tried to wake Olga, but she refused to wake up, so he went back to sleep. The bright lights woke up their youngest daughter, Angelica, who ran to wake her mother, so Olga eventually did wake up, saw what the other two had seen, and then woke Vladimir back up. He was amazed to see that the ceiling of the room had apparently disappeared, or become totally transparent. Now, right above them, instead of the ceiling, they could see the open sky and a huge disc-shaped craft hovering right above. Vladimir and Olga ran outside their home, still in their PJs, and could see a hovering disc-shaped UFO emitting the strong lights about 100 feet away. Olga began floating, zooming upwards in a spiral motion, and when Vladimir tried grabbing her legs, he discovered he couldn't control his body. Olga described feeling nauseous, unable to control her body as well. In a state of shock, the couple found themselves teleported inside a room with transparent walls and no furniture. Moments later, the duo witnessed 12 entities enter. The humanoids were short, around 4 feet tall, having 3 fingers on each hand and large heads with smooth gray skin. Now, Vladimir didn't notice any mouths, noses, or ears on them, but noticed their large, black, pupilless eyes. The entities had no visible legs and were moving around like caterpillars. They wore a completely sealed, tight-fitting coverall with masks and hoods that covered their bodies. Only one of the aliens was taller than the rest, easily over 6 feet tall, and stood behind the other small humanoids, with his face not being visible under his outfit. The short entities approached Olga first, placing her in a deep armchair which resembled a gynecologist chair, prompting Vladimir, who was now unfrozen, to attempt to rush towards her, but he ran into an invisible wall or force field. 2 of the aliens approached him now, and he asked, what's going on? And they reassured him telepathically that soon you will be back home. Oh yeah, nothing to be afraid of. Vladimir became rightfully angry and attempted to push the aliens away, but was thwarted by more entities grabbing him in an attempt to restrain him. The aliens asked him why he resisted, staring straight into his eyes each time they communicated, telepathically, before inserting 4 metallic rods into his chest area, paralyzing him completely. From that moment on, he was unable to move, and could only stand there helplessly and watch the aliens experiment on Olga. Somehow they were able to cut into her stomach without her noticing, or using any kind of known surgical instruments. She sensed the smell of her inner organs, feeling unpleasant, but no pain, only tranquility and relaxation. And modern human medicine could apparently stand to learn a thing or two. The aliens seemed to be taking samples from her body and organs, and were apparently now using different instruments to study the organs inside her abdomen. Olga was only able to describe that one looked like a pair of pincers and had 3 clamps. After the strange procedures, the aliens closed and sewed up her stomach. Before the abduction, Olga had been bothered by stomach pains, but after that day, she never suffered from them again. Apparently, the aliens were more interested in communicating with Vladimir, explaining to him that the female is the entity in a stage less developed than the male entity, which I'll beg to differ. The smaller humanoids respectively called the taller humanoid by a word that Vladimir has loosely translated as the professor, who explained to Vladimir that their society was like a huge ant colony. After Vladimir was brought in front of the professor, he asked the entity why they had taken him and his wife, with the taller being answering that it had to be done. Both witnesses understood that having such feelings was, the central interest of the aliens. The tall alien said, we don't understand you. Why haven't you, intelligent animals, destroyed yourselves yet? How can you survive with your emotions? He said that there was a space war going on at that time in the universe, and that the entity that we call God has implanted much information into Earth and the waters of it. Those who are against God, want that information destroyed. If the Earth is going to be destroyed, the Son of God would arrive to Earth again and will restore everything living it. Well, I think I've heard that story before. Through the transparent surface of the cabin, the duo could see the planet Earth approaching and felt that their spacecraft was slowing down. The couple was returned then back to Earth the very same way they were abducted. First in the smaller module, and then the large disc-shaped craft, and then through the roof of their home inside a beam of light. At 11 a.m. the next morning, Vladimir and his wife awoke, and a while passed before they talked about what had occurred. But after analyzing the mutual identical memories, they understood that what had happened had not been a dream but reality. The whole family underwent extensive medical tests to see if the aliens had left behind any implants and to try and find any traces of surgery. By some mysterious manner, Vladimir lost his gray hairs, and his physical powers of endurance increased after the abduction. Olga was cured of her chronic colitis and gained the ability to make a drunken man sober by placing the palm of her hand on the man's forehead for 2 to 3 minutes. It's a pretty neat ability, but I'm not sure I want to undergo testing for it. Number 2, lizard beings from Colorado. Back in 1968, Hannah and her family were living in a small town in the west end of Montrose County called Uravan, Colorado. One early summer morning, she was awakened by the barking of the family dog named Tippy outside her bedroom window, which was unusual for the pup, who usually only barked when someone or something was in a yard that wasn't supposed to be. Hannah remembers waking up out of a deep sleep and hearing Tippy constantly barking and wondering why her older brother, who slept in the bunk above her, and her parents sleeping in the bedroom on the other side of the wall, weren't telling Tippy to quit it. So finally, Hannah was fed up and decided to turn over in bed and look out the window, and was met with a sight she didn't believe at first. There it was, a small circular ship with its landing gear down and a hatch with stairs folded down to the ground. Next to the ship were green lizard-like beings with bright yellow eyes, webbed hands that resembled a bow and arrow, and had some sort of tanks on their back. They had thin bodies, were covered in scales, and had V-shaped toes. According to Hannah, the overall mood was that these beings were searching for something, but she had no guesses as to what. Another alien exited the ship, but it was much larger in size than the others and seemed to be giving out orders. This caused Tippy to begin barking aggressively again, upsetting the aliens who began to approach the dog. Hannah instinctively jumped off her bed and rushed into her parents' room in an attempt to wake her mom, but struggled. Her mom slept as if something was wrong, and when she finally awoke was incredibly sluggish in movement. Hannah explained what was going on outdoors and her concern for Tippy, but the mom was unable to see the creatures and wanted to just go back to sleep. Hannah's mom eventually also told her to, sleep away from the window, and before she fell back asleep, she remembered seeing two of the lizard beings looking in her room through the window and no longer hearing any noise from Tippy. When morning came, Hannah rushed outdoors in her PJs to, check on her beloved pet, and Tippy was waiting like nothing had happened. The occurrence was never discussed between Hannah and her mom again until shortly before her mom's passing in 2016, when she asked Hannah if she remembered seeing the lizard people and their ship in their yard in Colorado. Creepy. Number 1. 7 donuts in the sky. On May 19th of 1952, an aircraft flying an RB-36 aircraft reported spotting a series of several donut shapes appearing in the sky, and were able to take photographs to accompany their incident report, which can be found in National Archives. The crew of 22 reported flying just south of Sonora when they originally spotted the phenomenon, stating that the plane was headed on a 301 degree heading at 18,000 feet, which with relatively calm winds for that altitude. At 8:05 p.m., the objects appeared just to the left of the plane's nose at a range estimated by the crew to be 80 to 120 kilometers ahead. The objects were stacked vertically from approximately 25 to 60,000 feet, and even with all the photographs and drawings, there is still no definite answer as to what was spotted. Number 5. Want to catch these alien hands? So in the realm of mysterious artifacts that tend to defy earthly explanations, the giant hand discovered in a Peruvian cave back in 2017 stands as quite the tantalizing enigma, if you ask me. And since you're here, Brian Forrester and his team associated with Hidden Inca Tours received this peculiar specimen from a group of explorers who stumbled upon it near Cusco. What's more is they claim to have found an elongated humanoid skull and a small mummified alien in proximity to the giant hand. Although the explorers kept the exact location under wraps, get it? They allowed Forrester to examine the anomalous artifacts, if you will. X-ray analysis unveiled a startling revelation. Each of the hand's 3 fingers possessed an astonishing 6 bones, in stark contrast to the human hand's, 3. Unnamed physicians, perplexed by their findings, classified the hand and skull as biological objects with genuine animal bones and skin tissues. Now the enigma deepens as they asserted that these specimens bore no resemblance to any known earthly creatures. While this discovery invokes images of extraterrestrial origins, conclusive evidence remains elusive. UFO hunter Scott C. Waring of UFOsightingsdaily.com emphasized the hand's otherworldly nature, yet DNA analysis leaves room for ambiguity, as we have no extraterrestrial DNA to really compare it to. Instead, the results only affirm that this mysterious hand does not correspond to any known species of this earth. The existence of the skull adds complexity to the mystery, raising questions about potential cooperative efforts between various alien entities within the, cave tunnel. The implications of this discovery are nothing short of mind-boggling. It challenges our understanding of biology, anthropology, and the boundaries of what may lie beyond our planet. The giant alien hand, along with its associated artifacts, remains a subject of intense scrutiny for researchers and enthusiasts alike, leaving us with more questions than answers in the quest to unravel its true origin and significance. Number 4. Alien Tooth Wheel. And just when I think I've seen it all, I'm proven otherwise. 300 million years ago, our planet was a vastly different place. Dinosaurs were still a distant dream, and complex machinery seemed like pure science fiction. Yet in the vast reaches of Russia, a mysterious artifact has been uncovered, shrouded in mystery and controversy. Imagine the astonishment of Dmitry, a resident of Vladivostok, when he stumbled upon an unusual piece of coal while preparing to heat his home. This wasn't your typical lump of ancient carbon, it held a metallic secret, a seemingly artificial metal object, reminiscent of tooth rails used in microscopes and electronics, was embedded within the coal. This discovery raises numerous perplexing questions. For starters, how could such an artifact, bearing a striking resemblance to modern technology, exist in a geological stratum dating back 300 million years. The Voice of Russia reported that when geologists examined the metal object, it exhibited an astonishing lightness and softness, consisting of 98% aluminum and 2% magnesium. These findings led to the unsettling implication that this was not a natural occurrence, but an artificial creation. What truly baffled researchers was the object's shape, resembling a contemporary tooth wheel. The regularity of its structure, with 6 identical teeth, defied natural explanations. Once again, it's a conundrum that challenges our understanding of ancient technology, and who might have crafted such a device in a time when humans did not yet roam the earth? Speculation abounds, regarding the origin of this metal piece. Some suggest an extraterrestrial connection, given the artifact's anachronistic nature. However, not everybody is convinced. Geologist Sharon Hill, known as I Doubt It, dismissed the story as laughable. She questioned the lack of publication in scientific journals and the reliance on the discoverer's word. The notion of an alien origin for aluminum was met with skepticism. Despite the intrigue, the scientific community remains cautious, insisting on further tests and analysis to uncover the truth behind this perplexing find. Let me know in the comments what you think, by the way, because as usual, I'm on team alien artifact that should probably be left alone for our own goodwill. If it's been buried, or covered up, it's probably for a reason. Number 3, an alien body. Yep, Alexa talking about a corpse. Go figure. Did you expect anything less today? This tale takes place in Russia, and while I don't exactly recommend physically trying to travel there right now for, reasons, we shall take this trip virtually. Eugenia Popova of Petrozavodsk City first reported in 2011 that she had been keeping a frozen alien body in a refrigerator for a couple of years. Yeah, just casually. I have questions, like, was it next to the food? Was it a spare fridge? Was it in like a crisper? What did it smell like? Was it like baking soda? Did it help with the fridge? Like, curious minds need to know. Allegedly, she found it next to her summer house, so I suppose we can assume it was a fridge that wasn't used as much. Maybe it was like a garage fridge? On the day she discovered the body, Eugenia claimed that she was disturbed by a terrible noise that shook her from her sleep, describing it as deafening, screeching, and overpowering. As one does. She rushed outdoors and came across the boiling hot alien remains lying next to metal fragments. The creature was between 40 to 50 centimeters long, had a big head, mouth and orbits, and was wearing a one-piece garment of some sort. 2 days after going public with her story, Eugenia was visited by some people who confiscated the body for the purpose of investigation, and according to their words, took it to the Karelian Research Center of the Russian Academy of Sciences. However, employees of the research center, who were interviewed later, said they had never heard the story. I'm sensing an all too familiar government cover-up here. How about you folks at home? Honestly, if the photos weren't as convincing as they are, I probably wouldn't have included it in today's list, but I just couldn't tear my eyes from how strange it looks. Number 2, the original Roswell Evidence. Yes, I reference it often, but it's truly one of the best examples of, alien proof that cannot be debunked as easily as some of the other older claims. And also, something that is not from this world. Rancher W.W. Mac Brazel had found wreckage on his property in Lincoln County, New Mexico, which is roughly 120 kilometers north of Roswell, sometime between mid-June and early July, describing it as rubber strips, tinfoil, and thick paper. The ranch had no phone and no radio, leaving Mac completely unaware of the ongoing, flying saucer craze at the time. So he gathered the debris and just pushed it under some brush to dispose of it. This was not the first instance of a flying disc spotting in the region, with several stories already being reported to the press that year. So on July 5th, Mac drove into Corona, where he heard stories of silvery flying discs, and 2 days later made the decision to bring the wreckage into the sheriff's office. The sheriff called in the Roswell Army Airfield, which assigned the matter to Major Jesse Marcel. Mac brought Major Marcel back to the debris site, and the two gathered up more of the pieces of the debris, with the major taking the materials home. The next day, Public Information Officer for the Roswell Army, Walter Hunt, issued a press release stating that personnel from the field's 509th Operations Group had recovered a flying disc. On that same day, Major Marcel took the material to his base commander, Colonel William Blanchard, who reported the findings to General Roger Ramey at Fort Worth Army Airfield, FWAAF for short. Or FWAF. General Ramey ordered that the material be flown to Fort Worth immediately, leaving Marcel to board a B-29 Superfortress to make the flight. As soon as Marcel brought the material to General Ramey's office, both Ramey and his chief of staff, Colonel Thomas Dubose, identified the material as pieces of a weather balloon kite. The weather officer on duty explained to reporters that Ray wind devices were used at about 80 weather stations across the country. The balloons were attached to a 6-pointed reflective device that looked like a silver star, and after launch the balloon would expand with increasing altitude before before bursting at around 60,000 feet, with pieces dispersing in their fall to the ground. After the initial newspaper reports of 1947, the Roswell incident faded from public attention for more than 30 years until the late 1970s, which brings us to February of 1978, when UFO researcher Stanton Friedman interviewed Major Marcel, whose statements contradicted those he made to the press in 1947, saying, they wanted some statements, but he had to keep his mouth shut at the time. And once again, General Ramey is the one who discussed everything to the newspapers and, to forget about it, saying it's nothing more than a weather observation balloon. Of course, both men knew differently. It wasn't a weather balloon. And after the United States congressional inquiries, the General Accounting Office actually launched an inquiry and directed the Office of the United States Secretary of the Air Force to conduct an internal investigation. A report released in 1994 concluded that the material recovered in 1947 was likely, keyword here, debris from now Project Mogul, so not a weather balloon. A little suspicious. A scholarly consensus emerged concluding that the military had decided to conceal the true purpose of the crash device, allegedly now nuclear test monitoring. The balloon had allegedly been launched from Alamogordo Army Airfield a month earlier, carrying a radar reflector and classified Project Mogul sensors. The Air Force reports were dismissed by UFO experts as being either disinformation or simply implausible. So while this has been debunked time and time again by a constantly lying government, I truly believe that these items were truly not from this world. Number 1. Mexico alien corpses. Yep, more corpses. Alrighty folks, we're ending today with the most recent case on our list, a display of bodies from September of this year. Now few cases are as captivating as this discovery of 2 tiny mummified figures found in Peru. Mexican journalist and UFO enthusiast Jamie Mawson passionately champions these beings as a pivotal moment in human history. With elongated heads and 3 fingers on each hand, they challenge our understanding of life on Earth. In the heart of Mexico City, in the district of Santa Fe, Mawson's office became a hub of intrigue. 2 closed boxes, their glass lids offering a tantalizing glimpse into the unknown, held these peculiar figures. As witnesses gathered around, their ancient appearance became apparent, as they possess 2 eyes, a mouth, 2 arms, and 2 legs. Mawson claims these beings, found near the always intriguing Nazca lines in 2017, are unlike anything the world has seen. Through social media and public presentations, Mawson provides a compelling case that these beings date back about 1,000 years, and they belong to no known earthly species. The assertion that one of them, possibly a female, contained eggs adds another layer of mystery. Now this man's crusade is driven by his belief that this discovery has the potential to unite humanity in the face of such profound questions. However, some skepticism looms. David Spergel, a former head of Princeton University's astrophysics department, calls for transparency and openness in testing these samples, welcoming scrutiny from the global scientific community. DNA and carbon dating tests shared on social media and in presentations provide supporting evidence for the otherworldly nature of said beings. The results claim a genetic composition that defies known terrestrial evolution, with 30% remaining a mystery. Carbon dating from the National Autonomous University of Mexico asserts that these beings are more than a millennium old, a finding that stirs curiosity. The figures themselves shown at the hearing exhibit humanoid features, but with peculiar characteristics, such as retractable necks and long skulls reminiscent of avian traits. They also reportedly possess implants of rare metals, including osmium, one of Earth's scarcest elements. The question of how these figures arrived in Mexico remains shrouded in mystery, with the possession resting with an unidentified Mexican man who was present in Mawson's office. He offers a little explanation, promising to reveal the full story at an undisclosed time. Jose de Jesus Zalque Benitez, director of the Health Sciences Research Institute of the Secretary of the Navy, stands alongside Mawson, supporting his claims. Their interpretation of the scientific data raises profound questions about the origins of these beings. As Mawson and his team strive to push the boundaries of our understanding, the world watches, torn between skepticism and wonder, in the pursuit of answers that may forever alter our perception of what the heck is on this planet?
Number 5. Alien Task Force. In July of 2022, a government-aligned UAP organization was created, the AARO, or the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, directed by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. It's the government lead for all UAP-related anomalies. The purpose of ARO is summarized in their mission and vision statements, which say their goals are to minimize technical and intelligence surprise by synchronizing scientific, intelligence, and operational detection, identification, attribution, and mitigation of unidentified anomalous phenomena in the vicinity of national security areas. Vision statement is, unidentified anomalous phenomena are effectively and efficiently detected, tracked, analyzed, and managed by way of normalized DoD, intelligence community, and civil business practices, by adherence to the highest scientific and intelligence tradecraft standards, and with the greatest transparency and shared awareness. A lot. RO reviews reports of UAPs and has received hundreds of reports. Dr. Kirkpatrick estimates that they receive 50 to 100 reports each month. They investigate each and every video and report using their scientific resources. The RO reports to Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks. It is the first government office to be tasked with synchronizing efforts across the DoD and the interagency to collect, report, and analyze UAPs. They are taking a collaborative, objective, data-driven approach to their mission. The RO has a website that anyone can visit to check out all of this information for themselves. There are countless videos of UAP sightings posted to the government-backed website. They are also working on a government personnel sighting report program for current and former government employees who may have knowledge of UAPs. RO replaced the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, UAPT, which only ran from 2019 to 2021. I personally think that the RO is pretty cool. I mean, oftentimes alien conspiracists are shamed for not believing in science, but having an accomplished physicist show so much passion and determination for getting answers reminds us all what science is really about. It's about understanding the worlds around us, asking questions, making theories, and of course, staying curious. Number 4, government-owned UAPs. In July of 2023, 3 former military officials entered a Congress hearing and shook the minds of hundreds of people. David Grush told the panel that he was absolutely certain the government was in possession of UAPs. David Grush is a decorated Afghanistan soldier and a former Air Force intelligence officer who worked at the NGA, which is the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and at the NRO, which is the National Reconnaissance Office. From 2019 to 2021, he was the NRO representative of the UAPT. Remember, the organization that came before RO? A lot of letters. David was the co-lead for UAP analysis for the NGA. He assisted in drafting the National Defense Authorization Act of 2023, which includes provisions for the reporting of UFOs, including whistleblower protections and exemptions to non-disclosure orders and agreements. So clearly, he's a pretty accomplished man, and a man who is extremely knowledgeable of the events and conversations that are taking place in government settings, especially surrounding UAPs and Inhumans. David claimed that he was informed multi-decade Pentagon program that sought to locate, collect, and reconstruct UAPs. He interviewed over 40 people in 4 years and has come to the conclusion that the government is currently in possession of UAP. He said he actually knew the exact location of the technology, as the information was provided to him, the Inspector General, and some was provided to the intelligence committees. David claims that the program is funded above congressional oversight, being bankrolled by a misappropriation of funds. When asked if that meant there was money being taken out of other programs, yes, I have specific knowledge of that. David was unable to release more information regarding the funding, as he said it was classified. He stated that even though he didn't have any first-hand experience with UAPs, he knows several colleagues who have encountered and even been injured by them. The entire hearing was extremely telling. A lot of crazy revelations came to light, but UAPs weren't the only thing the government was accused of possessing and hiding, and they definitely weren't the most interesting thing either, which brings us into our next point. Number 3, NonHuman Biologics at a crash site. During the same hearing that David Grush dropped the news that the government had UAPs, he dropped another, even bigger extraterrestrial bomb on everyone. He claimed to be aware of colleagues who had recovered from NonHuman Biologics, derived from UAP crashes. However, when asked to provide evidence to substantiate his claims, Grush again stated that he was not able to provide any more information, as it was classified. But he did describe the unsettling nature of what he witnessed. I have to be very careful here. What I personally witnessed, myself and my wife, was very disturbing. Grush informed the panel that though he could not elaborate on everything in front of the public, he was able and willing to provide more information to select people in a sensitive compartmented information facility. He claims that his testimony was based on information given to him by trusted individuals, who all had a long-standing record of legitimacy. He said that the sources shared proof in photographs, documentation, and official oral testimonies. When asked if he had known of anyone who lost their lives due to inhuman materials, Grush responded, "I directed people with that knowledge to the appropriate authorities." Grush said that he'd suffered retaliation within the government for his decision to become a whistleblower, but he hoped that his coming forward would help with future transparency from the government to citizens. What Inhuman Biologics were seen and found are still a mystery, but many people have theorized as to what exactly Grush meant. He divulged that pilots who recovered from crashes had been affected by the Unhuman Biologics, which was the assessment that people with direct knowledge of the situation provided Grush. Many agencies and news outlets have since spoken out against David's claims, criticizing him for his outlandish lies, as they put it. I don't think what Grush is saying is accurate. While it's possible he's believing what he's saying, it's an incredible story that really needs some actual verification. So far, the best evidence Grush has come up with, besides his own word, is the government's denial. Even RO director Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick has spoken in opposition of David, stating that David has refused contact with the RO. Kirkpatrick even added on, saying that the hearing was insulting to the officers of the Department of Defense and intelligence community who chose to join RO, many with not unreasonable anxieties about the career risks this would entail. Grush has not responded to any of these criticisms. Here's my opinion on it. I'm just not sure why he would lie, and if he is lying, why? There must be something even deeper going on because, as we know, the government frequently covers up a huge scandal with many smaller ones. What do you think? Number 2, UFO in disguise. Now we're gonna go a little bit south, down to Mexico, where the shocking hearing revealed and presented jaw-dropping extraterrestrial information. A photo that first appears to be a close-up of a star, or the sun is claimed to be a UFO. The strange thing about this star, though, was it wasn't in space. It was in the sky, and it wasn't burning out the eyes of onlookers. It's described as a spherical object with 3 layers, seemingly made of light or energy. Many have commented that it looks as though there is a UFO in the center of the orb. A user commented, "A ring or layers may not be the craft itself, but an effect of the camera. I'm not saying it's not a UAP and all camera stuff. There is without a doubt a glowing UAP up there. Just saying the layered look appears to be the common effect that happens when taking photos of bright things in the sky from a distance." They further noted the similarities between this photo and the description that Charles Halt provided in regards to the Rendlesham incident. For those of you who are unaware of the Rendlesham Forest incident, I'll give you a quick summary of it. In December of 1980, a series of sightings, all claiming to have seen strange, unexplained lights, were reported. The lights were seen near a United States Air Force occupied base in England. Many personnel claimed to have seen these lights, including Colonel Charles Halt. Furthered the curiosity when he stated that he also saw UFOs among the lights. Some men drew diagrams and pictures to try to record what the lights looked like. Halt described that the lights were red, sun-like light. Sun-like light. Adding, "It's like the pupil of an eye looking at you, winking, and the flash is so bright to the starscope that, it almost burns your eye." Users have also released their own photos online of images similar to what had been released. There have been no official answers regarding what the Rendlesham incident was, or what the similar disguised UFO from the Mexico hearing was. Finally, number 1, Nonhuman Mummy. As always, I saved the best for last. During the same Mexico hearing, a researcher presented 2 unidentified inhuman beings to the world. Yes, Jamie Masson is a journalist and researcher on UAPs. Jamie entered the hearing with 2 boxes, each carrying what he claims are the small stuffed bodies of extraterrestrial beings. Jamie and a colleague ran extensive testing on both of the specimens. X-rays, 3D reconstructions, macro and microscopic analysis, DNA analysis, and just about every test you could possibly run on a creature. They found that the creatures were 100%, without a doubt, non-human. He describes the creatures, stating, "They are 60 centimeters long, covered by a white powder that, through electron microscopy, we identify as diatom powder, which allows the desiccation of the bodies as well as the absence of the generation of bacteria, fungi, and cadaveric fauna. The presence of this dust allows the perfect conservation by desiccation of these bodies, causing a natural conservation process over time, which we were able to calculate by applying the carbon-14 test, which indicated and dated an average of 1,000 years old." They claim to have recovered the creatures in Peru in 2017. They were able to identify that one of the creatures was 1,800 years old and the other was 700 years old. Each had only 3 fingers and 3 toes, a head, a neck, abdomen, and limbs. The bones were resistant, light but strong. Jamie compared them to the bones of a bird. The skull has the characteristics which further display how light yet resistant the bones are. The skull also has a lot of space for what they would figure would be a brain and eyes. The brain would be incredibly large large and the eyes would have had an amazing field of vision. They were able to tell that the species consumed food through swallowing opposed to chewing. The bone formation in the neck is not found in primate species like humans, monkeys, or apes. They were able to find evidence of eggs, which prove that the species was biological and organic, as the replication would be impossible to falsify, according to Jamie. The creatures had strange fingerprints. Opposed to being a circular pattern like ours, theirs were completely straight and horizontally linear. The species also have metal implants that are attached below the skin near the surface. The implants are alloys of several metals, including osmium and cadmium, which are both used for satellite telecommunications. They compared the DNA with over 1 million different species and found that there's a significant difference between all of them. The studies that proved how different this species is were conducted in various countries. The results showed that 70% of the genetic material is known, but 30% isn't. This difference is absolutely insane. The difference between humans and primates is less than 5%, and the difference between humans and bacteria is less than 15%. 30% is huge! Jamie closed his presentation by saying, "I can affirm that these bodies are 100% real, organic, and biological, that at the time they had a life and are irrefutable evidence in themselves. We are facing the paradigm of describing a new species or the opportunity to accept that there has been contact with other non-human beings that were drawn and pointed out in the past, in various cultures throughout the world, such as Peru, Egypt, and Mexico, and that today we can accept their existence among and with us." Many have challenged Jamie's claims, stating that similar discoveries have been forged in the past. By him. They also added that they do not have any actual proof that any of the tests were ever carried out. But I don't know. It doesn't sound completely outlandish to me. I mean, humans do have a track record of wiping out humanoid species. I mean, just think of the Neanderthals. I wouldn't be surprised if humans just got jealous of the creature's superior intellect and decided, let's get rid of them.
Coming up first on this list of alien abductions today is going to be Antonio Vesbas. I probably pronouncing that wrong, I'm gonna be honest, should have looked it up before. A Brazilian man who became infamous in 1957 when his alleged story of an alien encounter rocked our understanding of this world. According to his account, he was working on his family's farm near São Francisco de Sales when he observed a bright red object in the night sky. As this object approached, Boas claimed it changed color to orange and then landed on the ground. He described it as looking like a metallic egg-shaped craft with rotating lights on top. Reportedly, 4 small beings emerged from the craft. Humanoid, grayish blue skin, the classic like little gray alien that you always see. These beings took him aboard their craft, they took samples of his DNA, and also, if you believe what he said, they said that they had a mate with one of their more attractive female humanoid aliens. After a beautiful night, Boas claimed that he was released and watched as the craft took off and disappeared into the night sky. He reported experiencing physical symptoms afterwards, including nausea and weakness. Now, initially, Boas would keep this to himself. It's embarrassing to tell your friends you kissed an alien, I guess. Eventually, though, he would share his story in 1958, contacting a journalist and gaining widespread attention from media all over, all the way up to top 5 scary YouTube videos. And if you're looking for way more stories about alien abduction, like I just said, Top 5 Scary is kind of the name in that. Click on through, we have got videos on every subject you could possibly think up that's creepy and crawly. So hit subscribe, make sure to hit that bell as well so you don't miss a single scream, but if you would be so kind, do that at the end of this video because I got 4 more stories of alien abductions coming up for you right now. Number 4, Yafit Cado. Yafit Cado is an American actor. He's most known for Live and Let Die, but he is far more famously known as Parker in Ridley Scott's 1978 masterpiece Alien. Perhaps then that it's a bit ironic, or it's perfectly fitting, that he has been encountering aliens since he was young. Cado believes in aliens, alongside seeing aliens, and has even claimed to have made direct physical contact and held an alien. Speaking out for the first time ever about this in 2017, Cado told Vice News about his experiences. He said it began in his youth when he was staying home one day looking out at the streets of the Bronx, New York, watching people play stickball. He turned around and there was a humanoid figure that stood 5 or 6 feet tall with an elongated head which disappeared. Pretty sad, because Cado would spend a lot of his life pursued by aliens with elongated heads on board the USS Nostromo. He claimed that over the next 50 years he was continuously monitored. He described one scenario where coming home and then going into his garage to meditate, he saw something shining ethereally bright. He says that there were things flying over his house, wouldn't call them aircrafts, but entities. He said that every time he would move to a new house, there would be a ring of smoke that would be present when he moved in. Now, the most outlandish claim was that while visiting the Philippines, Cado claims he saw a UFO the size of Yankee Stadium flying over an office he was staying at following that same circle of smoke. Now, there's not really any recordings or sightings of a gigantic UFO in the Philippines around this time, so kinda have to wonder. Now, Cado claims to have an IQ of 196 and describes himself as being mentally stable. Who isn't? And was wary to talk about any of his paranormal experiences for fear that people would dismiss him for his connection to the Alien movies. So what do you think, my fair viewers? Is it too much of a cosmic coincidence? Or was it perhaps destiny that an actor famous for being tangled with aliens was pursued by them in real life? Maybe he was just getting really into the role, doing that like Jared Leto method acting research and thought that to play a guy hunted by aliens, he should be hunted by aliens in real life. Number 3. Linda Napalitano. Linda Napalitano, also known as Linda Quartile, is a woman who claims that she was abducted by aliens in New York City in 1989. Even aliens can't resist the allure of the Big Apple. Gotta come check out Lady Liberty. Her story has become one of the most famous, but also controversial alleged alien abduction stories. Now, according to how Miss Napolitano tells it, she was asleep in her 12th floor apartment in Manhattan when she was suddenly awoken by a very blinding bright light. She claimed then that she saw 3 small beings with big pale gray skin and large black eyes that levitated her out of her bedroom window and into a waiting nearby UFO up above. She described these beings as very humanoid and looking about 4 feet tall, another example of those classic little gray aliens like we mentioned in the first point. Napolitano reported that she was taken to a room on the craft where she was examined by these beings. She said that she was taken to a council room where she saw several humanoid-esque beings who were running the thing, sort of administrative, seemed like a captain or commander type. Napolitano claimed that these beings communicated with her telepathically, and they told her that they were from a far off planet called Serpo, and were conducting experiments on humans to understand our physiology as we were a bit new to them. Okay then, it's completely reasonable, no cause for any alarm. Take a couple fingernails, take some spit, take some hair, take whatever you need. Now, Napolitano's alleged abduction got her quite a lot of attention because it's a fantastical story and a wild depiction of an abduction, and her story was featured in major news outlets and even a book detailing what happened. Now, obviously there is some skepticism if Napolitano is just telling a tall story to get a little attention, but over the years she has maintained that what happened to her was the good and honest truth, and has since become a fairly notable figure in the UFO communities sharing her story. Number 2. Bisa Kipriyanovich. Bisa Kipriyanovich is a Russian man who gained attention due to his claimed extraordinary abilities and also his alleged memories of his past life on Mars when he was a Martian. Born on January 11th, 1996 in Volsky, Russia, Bisa started attracting media attention from a fairly early age. According to Bisa, he began speaking very shortly after his birth. Babies don't usually do that. He displayed exceptional intelligence and knowledge beyond his years, claiming that they stemmed from his previous life when he lived on Mars. And he shared details about his Martian life, its civilization, and its advanced technology. According to Bisa, if you were expecting the Martians, you're out of luck because they've already come and gone, claiming that the Martians were a highly advanced society that was devastated by a cataclysmic event thousands of years ago and have since been wiped out. He claimed that Martians possessed a deep understanding of spiritual concepts, had far longer lifespans than humans, and had technology infinitely more advanced than ours. They probably also have some pretty cool movies. It makes sense then that Elon Musk wants us to get back out there so bad. Come check out some of the wreckage of their cool society. While some people found Bisa's story intriguing and considered it evidence of reincarnation or extraterrestrial contact, others remain, I think, a little healthily skeptical. For one thing, I didn't know you could reincarnate from like a different planet. I thought you had to reincarnate on the same planet, but I guess not. It's definitely fantastical, and until we can actually get up to the surface of Mars, it's going to be pretty difficult to confirm or deny if there really was a society that existed there previously. Now, it should also be noted that as the years have gone on, Boriska has spoken out less and less about his past life as a Martian prince, and there have been a lot fewer updates on him overall, which definitely lends a teeny tiny bit of skepticism. It does make you wonder if maybe the whole story was just a young person making something up, which I've never heard of something like that happening, so I don't know. Number 1, David Huggins. Oh, David. We've talked about Mr. Huggins before on the channel, and I'm talking about Mr. Huggins again because he's one of my favorite abduction stories. I saved the best for last. David Huggins is a painter who claims that he has been abducted by aliens multiple times throughout his life. They just could not get enough lovin' of Huggins. His first account happened when he was young, and he reported that he saw a UFO hovering over a nearby field, and a humanoid figure appeared down from the craft, blessing Huggins by telling him telepathically that he would have a special mission to fulfill in life. Of course, he had no idea what the special mission was at the time, and if he did, maybe he would not have been as excited. Over the years, Huggins claims that he had several encounters with these alien humanoids who had blessed him. He describes them as being tall and thin, and with large heads and large eyes. Now, he says these beings have taken him aboard their craft and shown him a number of things, including the creation of the universe, the future of the human race, how they get caramel inside chocolate bars without there being a hole, all sorts of wondrous things. Now, here's where things get interesting and a bit difficult to talk about with content guidelines, because Huggins claims that as a part of fulfilling this galactic destiny that he's gone for a few rolls in the hay with aliens, and that he's fathered several alien human hybrids with the extraterrestrials, and my mom watches these videos, so I'm sorry if I'm struggling. Inspired by these momentous events, Huggins painted his truth, rather directly influencing his artistic career, with most of his paintings depicting humanoid beings and UFOs hanging out. His paintings are actually visible in the Visionary Art Museum in Baltimore if you're up near there and want to check them out sometime. They're really cool. They are definitely not safe for work unless your work is my work, at which case looking at pictures of aliens kissing is my work and my passion. Do what you love and you never work a day in your life, and I have never worked a day in my life. Number 5, the story of Edgar Mitchell. Edgar Mitchell is a storied man. He's part of an incredibly exclusive club out of 12 other people who can claim that they have seen the Earth standing on the surface of the moon. I assume they all have a group chat together. He's best known for typing 80 lines of code to save the Apollo 14 mission as it descended to the moon in 1971. He was the 6th man to ever walk on the moon, and he is a devout believer in aliens being out there. He insists that he knows that top government and military officials were hiding the truth behind aliens in New Mexico. He said it was a known secret that alien spacecraft were responsible for disabling nuclear missiles and shooting them down, supposing that aliens are directly involved in intervention to prevent us from destroying the planet. Which, if that's the case, I've got nothing but thanks to give for our extraterrestrial friends. Thanks for that. We're not that responsible. He goes on to insist that the Roswell incident was real, and the government had covered it up and buried it as a conspiracy theory to deter people from finding out the real truth, which he believes NASA thinks the public simply wouldn't be able to handle. In 2004, he told a Floridan newspaper that he knew of a secret cabal inside the American government that was responsible for studying alien bodies, and that after JFK, this group no longer answered to the president and didn't include the commander-in-chief in their briefings. Mr. Mitchell is quoted as saying, "They all know that UFOs are real. The question is, where are they coming from?" Now, NASA didn't quite have the same tune. NASA themselves obviously denied all of Mitchell's statements, saying that Edgar Mitchell is a great American, but we don't share his opinions on this issue. Well, of course. If you've been sitting on a secret for 60 years, you're not gonna fold over one guy, but a bunch of evidence? Well, maybe. My goblins, you know what time it is. If you've been digging the scares, stick around and subscribe for some scary stuff every single day. Okay, let's creep on. Number 4, Luis Elizondo. Luis Elizondo is one of the most outspoken believers in aliens and UAPs out there today, alongside Tom DeLonge, championing that he believes firmly that NASA and the Pentagon aren't telling us all the whole truth. And he would know, as Elizondo formerly led a research team to research potential UFOs. Although the project was disbanded, Elizondo never gave up his mission, believing it to be his personal calling to expose the truth. He's been quoted many times saying, "My personal belief is there's very compelling evidence that we are not alone." He served on the Department of Defense and resigned in 2012 over excessive secrecy surrounding the UAP program. These aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the US inventory, nor in any foreign inventory that we are aware of, Elizondo said of the objects they researched in his time there. He added that the program was founded to analyze unexplained aerial phenomena and ascertain whether or not that what they were seeing is a threat to national security or not. Kind of unnervingly, when asked about that, he said, "We found a lot. We identified anomalous aircraft that are seemingly defying the laws of aerodynamics." Which, oh hey, coming from the mouth of someone who worked at the Pentagon, that seems just a little bit suspicious, right? Right? Not just me? The quote continues, "Things that don't have any obvious flight surfaces, any obvious forms of propulsion, and maneuvering in ways that include extreme maneuverability beyond, I would submit, the healthy G-forces of a human or anything biological." Elizondo's gone so far in the past as to suggest that he thinks the US government has fragments of UFOs or UAPs somewhere, reverse engineering it to learn all their secrets. Sounds extremely like someone higher up didn't want people finding out about whatever Elizondo was getting onto. And why not? Number 3, the signal. Now when it comes to aliens, we all kind of assume in the back of our heads that our first direct contact with them is going to be very up close and personal. That they'll come down and hopefully we'll see them face to face or face to mandible, or perhaps we'll see their ships descending on us and it's already too late. But what if our first contact was something else? A radar signal, a noise through the silence of space. In 2003, astronomers working for the SETI, short for the Search for Extra Intelligence, a project dedicated to hunting for extraterrestrial life, were using a massive telescope to look to the stars. Now nothing much came of it except for a series of unexplained radio signals from the skies. These signals all disappeared over time except one, which was growing stronger and stronger. The signal comes from somewhere between the constellation of Pisces and Aries, and curiously, the signal is at a frequency that absorbs and emits energy. Naturally, the researchers found this a bit interesting. Some of the astronomers believe that this could be a frequency that extraterrestrials are using to try and get our attention, like an intergalactic "you up" text. While it could very well have turned out to just be totally nothing or some sort of natural explanation that I'm not nearly smart enough to understand, I'm gonna err on the side of extraterrestrials. But we have to wonder what the signal was, right? I mean, we have to admit that's a bit suspicious, that there's something worth looking into there. Now this story is from 2003 and I had trouble finding an update on it, but who knows? Whatever was broadcasting that could still be out there. Number 2, Blue Book. Now I think we all kind of secretly suspect that some of our tax dollars are going to research aliens. I mean, what else are they doing all day? Well, in one form or another, government agencies have always been researching UFOs and UAPs. Since 1949 to 1969, Project Blue Book was the code name for a secret government research division dedicated to analyzing UAP technology, analyzing whether or not UAPs on record were threats to air and national securities, and just what any of this stuff in the sky was. It was basically the closest thing we had to a real-life X-Files department, as far as we know. I mean, there could be an even more secret one. Surely with all that government money, they must have found something special, right? Well, if you'd like to feel like Agent Mulder yourself, you can scroll through 130,000 pages of declassified documents from UFO specialist John Greenwald, who made it all available for free online. He's a defender of free information. Greenwald says secrets are not bad things. I think we should know about this and it should be in the history books. John, I completely agree. All this stuff about cover-ups, we can totally handle finding out aliens are real, okay? You know, we're big now, we're responsible, we learned about Santa, we can do this. A couple years ago, we experienced a wave where there were clowns hanging out on the street corner of like every rural street in North America. We got over that. We all saw Tiger King together. Aliens won't even be that weird, I don't think. Now, Project Blue Book was officially disbanded because according to a joint review, nothing significant ever came from it. Now, since then, it was thought that no government agency was looking into UAP research at all, except until the UAP document quietly dropped this year, you know, sneaking it under the door that NASA and the Air Force had been researching aliens and possible sightings this whole time time under everybody's nose, and they leaked a bunch of documents and footage, and you should look it up after this video because I'm not joking, it's totally real. It seems just like us, NASA can't rest until they find the truth out there. Number 1. New developments. We are probably coming to one of the most exciting times in UAP history, as after the UAP report came out, there is probably more legitimacy towards the discussion around the serious existence of extraterrestrial life now more than ever. As of October 2022, NASA is pretty much coming clean and opening a new study into the research of UAP and extraterrestrial life. 16 hand-picked specialists have been selected to analyze former data and determine how to go forward observing future events. Now, the study is less focused on whether or not previous sightings are confirmed UAPs, since it's kind of hard to ascertain with missing data. So it's more focused on what observations will be needed to understand UAP sightings going forward. The team is going to include researchers and key personnel from all divisions, all walks of life, notably including former astronaut Scott Kelly, who formerly served as a pilot for the Space Shuttle Discovery, and also once held the world record for most days in space, so he probably knows a thing or two about objects floating in the stars. Now, Kelly himself doesn't personally believe aliens have been to Earth yet, saying, "I think there's life in the universe. Hopefully intelligent life, but I don't think they visit planet Earth." So there's some skeptics on the team, but hey, at least they're finally coming out to get to brass tacks on this thing. Officially, openly, the government is talking with us about studying this phenomena. This is amazing. Now, you know how scientists are. They gotta have some numbers on a paper before they'll believe it. An associate administrator at NASA, Thomas Zerbchin, said, "Data is the language of scientists and makes the unexplainable explainable. Exploring the unknown of space and the atmosphere is at the heart of who we are at NASA. This is maybe the most exciting time in history to be a UAP fan."
In 5th place, we have an alien body. Yep, kicking today off with a corpse. Go figure. Did y'all expect anything less? This tale takes place in Russia, and while I don't exactly recommend physically trying to travel there right now for, reasons, we shall take this trip virtually. Eugenia Popova, a Petrovdastuk, I tried. City, first reported in 2011 that she had been keeping a frozen alien body in a refrigerator for a couple of years. You know, casually. I have so many questions. Like, did she keep it next to her food? Was it kept in a spare fridge? Did it smell, and what did it smell of? Allegedly, she found it next to her summer house, so I guess we can assume it was a fridge that wasn't used as much. On the original day that she discovered the body, Eugenia claimed that she was disturbed by a terrible noise that shook her from her sleep, describing it as deafening, screeching, and overpowering. She rushed outdoors and came across the boiling hot alien remains lying next to metal fragments. The creature was between 40 to 50 centimeters long, had a big head, mouth, and orbits, and was wearing a one-piece garment of some sort. Now, 2 days after going public with her story, Eugenia was visited by some people who confiscated the body for the purpose of investigation and, according to their words, took it to the Karelian Research Center of the Russian Academy of Sciences. However, employees of the research center who were interviewed later said they had never heard of this discovery. I'm sensing an all too familiar government cover-up here. How about you folks at home? Honestly, if the photos weren't as convincing as they are, I probably wouldn't have included it in today's list, but I just couldn't tear my eyes away from how strange it looks. Like, what do you think it looks like? Let me know in the comments. In 4th place, we have a tale from Wendys. Now, while I'm not accusing the creators of the Frosty of having alien knowledge, one of their Colorado locations happens to be the setting for our next encounter. Back in 1987, 16-year-old Jake Wells and his family were on a family trip to Texas from Washington and decided to stop at this fateful Wendy's for lunch, where Jake and his sister quickly grabbed a table for themselves to, escape the adults in the car and opted to people watch while they waited for their mom to grab food. Yeah, my brother and I probably would have done the same thing. Their table was approximately 3 feet away from 2 adults that appeared to be in their 40s or 50s. Jake and his sister Marissa immediately noticed weird vibes from this group, so they focused their observations on this family unit. The woman had long brown hair, was wearing a knee-length light tan trench coat, even though it was around 85 degrees out and in August. For those of us like myself who prefer their temperature in Celsius, that's around 29 degrees. Way too sticky icky for my liking, even if I was wearing like a sundress, never mind a full leather coat. The man of the unit looked kind of plain, with short brown hair, no facial hair, and had on glasses that were way too big for his face. The kid was weirdly dressed in clothes that were not typical for the 80s, and had short, light brown hair. All 3 of them looked like they had never seen sunlight, being extremely pale with pale lips. Okay, I'm pale, I'm not an alien. Also, the trio had large, mesmerizing brown eyes. Even though our narrator admits to really staring, the group never looked at him or his sister directly. In the middle of the family's table sat 7 or 8 hamburgers, untouched, in their wrappers, along with 5 large fries and no drinks. The family was simply sitting there, staring at the food as if it made zero sense to them. Jake's mom eventually dropped off food for Jake and his sister, which they rapidly dug into, and after 10 minutes had passed, and the family still hadn't touched their, pile. Eventually, the mom of the group said, "Do as they do. Unwrap the items and put it in your mouth. Blend in." At this point, Jake assumed they were possibly from another country, but the woman spoke perfect English without any sort of accent. Immediately after the command, all 3 members of the unit, at the exact same time, with precise matching mannerisms, began to unwrap a corner of a hamburger, but suddenly stopped mid-unwrap and acted like they were hearing something that Jake and his sister did not hear. Heads tilted, in unison, and paused for a few seconds. The woman said, clear as day, "We must go. The mothership is here. We must go now. We cannot miss it." Jake frantically looked around to see if anyone else was witnessing these events, with no success. Only him and his sister. He frantically signaled to his mom for help and rushed outside, dragging her by the arm as he explained his observations. They spotted the trio going around the back of the building and followed them, only to have them disappear completely once Jake and his mom rounded the corner. They searched everywhere, but to no avail. This event has bothered Jake in the back of his mind ever since, which is pretty fair. That's a lot of food and money to waste. And while I know a lot of magicians, that kind of disappearing act is genuinely impossible by human standards. In the middle of the pack, we have the original Roswell Evidence. Yes, I know, I reference it all the time, but it's truly one of the best examples of alien proof that cannot be debunked as easily as some of the other older claims or more modern claims that have already been debunked. Rancher W.W. Mac Brazel had found wreckage on his property in Lincoln County, New Mexico, so a little bit north of Roswell, sometime between the middle of June and early July, describing it as rubber strips, tinfoil, and thick paper. Now, this ranch had no phone, no radio, so Mac was completely unaware of the ongoing flying saucer craze, so he just gathered the debris and, pushed it under some brush, just wanted to kind of forget about it and goodbye. This wasn't the first instance of the flying disc spotting in the region, with several stories already being reported to the press that year. On July 5th, Mac drove into the nearby town of Corona, where he heard stories of silvery flying discs, and 2 days later, on July 7th, made the decision to unearth the wreckage and bring it to the sheriff's office in Roswell. The sheriff called in the Roswell Army Airfield, which assigned the matter to Major Jesse Marcel. Mac brought Major Marcel back to the debris site, and the two gathered up more pieces of rubber and tinfoil, with the Major taking the materials home. On July 8th, Public Information Officer for the Roswell Army, Walter Hott, issued a press release stating that personnel from the field's 509th Operations Group had recovered a flying disc near Roswell. On that same day, Major Marcel took the material to his base commander, Colonel William Blanchard, who reported the findings to General Roger Ramey at Fort Worth Army Airfield, WAF for short. General Ramey ordered the material be flown to Fort Worth immediately, leaving Marcel to board a crazy flight. As soon as Marcel brought the material to General Ramey's office, both Ramey and his chief of staff, Colonel Thomas Dubose, identified the material as pieces of a weather balloon kite. The weather officer on duty explained to reporters that ray wind devices were used at about 80 weather stations across the country. The balloons were attached to a 6-pointed reflective device that looked like a silver star. After launch, the balloon would expand with increasing altitude before bursting at around 60,000 feet, with pieces dispersing in their fall to the ground. After the initial newspaper reports of 1947, the Roswell incident faded from public attention for more than 30 years until the late 1970s, which brings us to February of 1978, when UFO researcher Stanton Friedman interviewed Major Marcel, whose statements contradicted those that he made to the press in 1947, saying that, they wanted some comments from him, but he wasn't at liberty to do that, so he could just keep his mouth shut. And General Ramey is the one who discussed, everything to the newspapers, the newsman, what it was, and to just forget about it. It's nothing more than a weather observation balloon. Of course, they both knew differently. While he didn't elaborate on that statement, he did deny the popular theories at the time of any bodies being found near the debris. Dang. After United States congressional inquiries, the General Accounting Office launched an inquiry and directed the Office of the United States Secretary of the Air Force to conduct an internal investigation. A report released in 1994 concluded that the material recovered in 1947 was likely, keyword here, debris from Project Mogul, a military surveillance program employing high-altitude balloons and classified portions of an unclassified New York University project by atmospheric researchers. A scholarly consensus emerged concluding that the military had decided to conceal the true purpose of the crash device, allegedly nuclear test monitoring, and instead inform the public that the crash was of a weather balloon. The balloon had allegedly been launched from the Alamogordo Army Airfield a month earlier, carrying a radar reflector and classified Project Mogul sensors for experimental monitoring of Soviet nuclear testing. The Air Force reports were dismissed by UFO experts as being either disinformation or simply implausible, and I'm tempted to agree with them. What was going on? I'm pretty sure this was real. In second place, we have a car and UFO crash from Minnesota. While on patrol outside the small community of Stephen, Minnesota, at around 2 a.m. on August 27th of 1979, Officer Val Johnson noticed a bright object hovering above the road and decided to investigate a little closer. My common sense would usually tell me that that means time for bed, but you do you, pal. The UFO suddenly rocketed straight at his patrol car, killing the engine. The last thing Val remembered was light all around him and the sound of glass shattering. When he woke up, the strange object was gone, and he was blind and bruised, but able to radio for help. Fellow policemen soon arrived and found Johnson's 1977 Ford in a heck of a state. The windshield was splintered and smashed, there were dents in the hood, and both a headlight and the roof beacon were wrecked. The car's 2 radio antennae were bent, respectively at 45 and 90 degree angles. Val also stated that the car's clock and his wristwatch both stopped for 14 minutes and that he had been blacked out for 39 minutes. The doctor who attended to him described his sight injury as similar to welder burns, caused by extreme exposure to UV light. Thankfully, he eventually recovered his vision, and the patrol car, with the original damage intact, now stands in a museum in the Minnesota town of Warren. In first place, we have a videotape from Puerto Rico. We're traveling a little more forward in time from the last 2 tales, up to the year 1997, which happens to be the year I was born. Many visitors to the El Yunque rainforest, located in the eastern region of the island, have experienced encounters with UFOs and apparent alien creatures at the site. An interesting fact pertaining to the encounters is the fact that music, especially flute music, seems to attract the mysterious creatures in the forest. And that flute music seems to have been what caused the encounter of a very strange-looking creature with several young men in the area known as La Coca Waterfall in December of 1997. The group of guys included Benjamin Loreno, Danny Quinones, and 2 other buddies who had gone up to the sector where the La Coca Waterfall is located on Highway 191. They parked their car on the side of the road, and Benjamin took out a portable camcorder he had brought with him from the car. Their intention was to experience a UFO sighting and capture video evidence, as they were interested in the UFO matter, and the forest was a place where many UFO-related events had occurred. Late at night, they decided to meditate, and Danny began to play a flute, casually. Sounds like a lot of my musical theater friends. Moments later, all of them heard something heavy fall to the ground from the high branches of a tree behind them. Looking at the group of trees from where the sound came from, they all saw a strange-looking creature that was trying to hide itself behind a tree and the undergrowth on the spawn. On instinct, they all immediately ran to where the creature was, and Benjamin turned the camcorder on and began to film what was happening, helped by the light from the camera's lamp. He pointed the camera to where the creature was, and took video for several seconds, after which the creature ran away and was lost in the brush in the dark of the night. Excited, they examined the recording, and sure enough, the image of the mysterious figure appeared in the video. Depicted in it was an extremely thin, weird creature around 4 feet tall, with a gray-green hue skin that looked oily, humid, sort of shiny looking. And then even though everything happened really quickly, it could be seen that the creature had long, thin arms and that it walked on 2 legs. Quickly, it jumped from behind the undergrowth to the left side of the image on the camera, where it hid behind the trunk of a tree, but at the same time it looked out from behind said tree to observe the humans. One could see that the head of the creature was semi-triangular in shape, wide above and thin below, and that it had 2 very large dark eyes that were slanted and elongated upwards. At one point, perhaps due to the dim light from the camera's lamp disturbing its vision, the creature opened and closed its eyes, and that's when one could see that it seemed to have 2 different sets of membrane-looking eyelids, one that opened and closed sideways, and another that opened and closed up and down. Moments later, the creature disappeared quickly, running through the dense vegetation at the site. The video has since been shown to several veterinarians and biologists in Puerto Rico, and none of them could identify what type of animal species the creature in the image could belong to.
Number 5. Avi Loeb. Harvard professor Avi Loeb and his team have undertaken a fascinating quest involving the potential discovery of alien technology fragments. Their journey takes us all the way back to 2014, when a meteor landed in the waters of Papua New Guinea. The pieces they collected from this mysterious visitor have raised intriguing questions. The US Space Command released a statement saying that there is a 99.999% certainty that these materials originated from another solar system. This revelation revelation prompted a thorough investigation, with the government providing a 10-kilometer radius for the likely landing zone. Their calculations yielded a potential path for the meteor that remarkably aligned with the government's projected landing zone. They set sail, traversing the meteor's projected trajectory. An innovative approach involved combing the ocean floor using a sled with magnets attached. Their findings were nothing short of astonishing. They unearthed 10 nearly perfect spheres resembling metallic marbles. Under the microscope, these objects displayed a captivating array of colors: gold, blue, brown, and some even bearing a resemblance to miniature Earths. The composition analysis revealed that these minuscule spheres were mostly composed of iron with traces of silicon, magnesium, and titanium. What sets these findings apart from any other space rocks cataloged by NASA is their high material strength. The meteor was calculated to have moved at an astounding 60 kilometers per second, faster than almost all of the stars in the vicinity of our sun. The combination of material strength and speed has led Avi Loeb to entertain the possibility that these fragments might be remnants of a spacecraft from another civilization or from some unknown advanced technology. The research into these objects is still in its early stages, and the team aims to discover whether these objects are of artificial or natural origin. If they are natural, it would provide insight into the materials that exist beyond our solar system. If they're artificial, the theories and possibilities are staggering, as the objects would be hinting at the possibility of extraterrestrial visitors from planets far beyond what we know. Many believe that these spheres are just the beginning of discovery and may eventually guide scientists to a more substantial find. The spheres are crucial in helping locate and understand any significant remnants of the meteor, which could offer further answers surrounding its origin. Whatever answers are found will inevitably lead to an incredible new sense of understanding of what is past our known universe, whether it's found to be a rock or a strange technological artifact. Number 4, the Voynich Manuscript. Often dubbed as the world's most mysterious book, the Voynich Manuscript has baffled scholars, cryptographers, and supernatural enthusiasts for centuries. This 15th century book is filled with peculiar, undecipherable texts alongside intricate illustrations of unknown plants, strange creatures, and unidentifiable symbols. A wide range of theories have emerged in an attempt to decode its origin and purpose. One of the leading theories believes that the manuscript is a hoax, created to deceive anyone who finds it. The intricate, unique script has led some to believe it's an elaborate cipher, but despite extensive efforts from many people and linguistic experts, no one has been able to crack it. The drawings of unfamiliar plants have led some to think that it might be a botanical or medical text, containing knowledge for herbal remedies or alchemical recipes. Other theories suggest that the Voynich manuscript could be part of a genuine but now lost language. Some researchers believe it may have been written in a natural language and then encoded for secrecy. This idea is supported by the manuscript's linguistic characteristics, which appear consistent with language patterns. However, without a key to decipher the text, this remains speculative. There's also the theory, my favorite theory by the way, that believes the book belonged to extraterrestrial beings who spoke a completely unknown language, and the drawings and recipe depictions represent objects and wildlife that humans have never experienced. Why did the aliens leave this book with us? I'm not sure, but if this book teaches us anything, it's that we certainly do not understand aliens in the slightest, so we definitely wouldn't be able to assume their motive and reasoning. If the book is of alien origin, it would contain mounds of insight for what alien planets or languages look like. Number 3, the Antikythera mechanism. This mechanism is an ancient find that is thought to be the world's first analog computer. It was discovered in a shipwreck near the coast of Antikythera in 1901. The device's complexity and potential purpose have birthed several wild theories about its origin and function. One theory is that the mechanism was an astronomical calculator or some kind of ancient mechanical model of the stars in space. This theory is based on the numerous gears and dials within the device, which would have allowed it to track the positions of celestial bodies, including the sun and the moon. This would have been a valuable tool for ancient astronomers and philosophers in understanding the movements of our solar system. Others suggest it might have served as a navigational instrument, helping sailors determine their position at sea by predicting celestial events, suggesting that the complex nature of the mechanism could have been used to determine critical dates and times, assisting in navigation efforts and predicting astronomical events like eclipses. It has also been proposed that the mechanism was employed as an orrery, a device that demonstrates the motions of celestial bodies, or even as an educational tool, aiding in the teaching of astronomy and complex scientific concepts in ancient Greece. The device's exact purpose and the extent of its capabilities are still topics of passionate debate. The fact that it was created more than 2,000 years ago is a testament to the advanced knowledge and engineering skills of the ancient Greeks, or to the knowledge of an otherworldly being. While many questions about the mechanism remain unanswered, it continues to be a symbol of fascination, still inspiring research and exploration into its true nature and purpose. Number 2, the crystal skulls. The crystal skulls are a set of strange artifacts that have fascinated both archaeologists and conspiracy theorists for so many years. These crystal skulls are precisely what they sound like, human skull-shaped carvings made from various types of quartz crystal. Most of them date back to pre-Columbian South American civilizations, specifically the Aztec, Mixtec, and Maya. The theory surrounding these skulls is what continues to make them so popular and intriguing, and let me tell you, there are a lot of theories. Some people believe that the skulls are ancient relics with supernatural or extraterrestrial origins, while others think they possess mystical or healing powers. One popular theory is that the crystal skulls were created by advanced ancient civilizations that possessed knowledge far beyond what we currently assume and understand. Some parts of this theory suggests that these crystals hold the secrets of lost technologies and predictions about future events. Then, of course, there's the theory that suggests the skulls are linked to extraterrestrial beings. This theory further assumes that these artifacts were gifts or messages from ancient alien visitors to Earth, gifted with the intention to guide or enlighten the less advanced beings they had stumbled across. Humans. Skeptics, however, assume that these crystal skulls are simply modern creations, likely made during the late 1800s or the early 1900s, and then were falsely aged so they would appear as ancient artifacts. Some well-documented forgeries and the absence of archaeological... Oh my god, not this word again. And the absence of context from many of these skulls do add a lot of substance to skeptics' beliefs. Despite this, the mystery surrounding the crystal skulls continue to capture the imaginations of curious minds and fuel a lot of debates about their origins, purpose, and theorized mystical properties. Whether they're being viewed as ancient relics, products of elaborate hoaxes, or otherworldly symbols, the crystal skulls have become a fascinating and intriguing find for the world of archaeology. Number 1, the Baghdad Battery. The Baghdad Battery is a strange historical puzzle that has raised questions about the technological capabilities of ancient civilizations. The battery was discovered near Baghdad, Iraq, and dates back to around 2,000 years ago, consisting of a clay jar, a copper tube, and an iron rod. What makes this find so confusing and perplexing is the fact that it dates back around 2,000 years, yet it resembles something extremely modern, a battery. However, before we get too carried away with visions of ancient Mesopotamians charging their smartphones, it's important to note that the true purpose of the battery remains unknown and highly debated. The basic concept is that it could generate a small electric current if filled with an acidic solution. Some researchers believe it may have had a more mundane purpose, like electroplating, which is a technique that's used in modern days to apply a thin layer of metal to objects. Others believe that it was an early form of medical treatment, possibly for pain relief, but there's no evidence that definitively confirms that the battery was created for this, and it isn't linked to any significant electrical advancements in ancient times, which, we would probably notice. But then that begs the question, is it even human? If it was truly human, why wasn't the technology spread throughout the world? Every technological advancement made throughout history was quickly spread through thousands of communities. A battery would not have just been disregarded. Even if it was mistaken or called a form of magic, people would still uncover it. It would have still been spread. So that leads me to think this was not a human creation. Otherworldly civilizations could be thousands of years ahead of us in advancements. If this battery was from them, Honestly, it would kind of make a lot more sense than it being a battery used by humans.
Number 5. The Barney and Betty Hill incident. The case of Barney and Betty Hill has puzzled UFO enthusiasts for generations and is considered one of the most well-documented, well-discussed UFO abduction stories, and also President Obama's favorite. He's making a documentary on it. In 1961, a young couple, Betty and Barney Hill, were driving home through New Hampshire when they saw a bright light flying through the sky. 2 hours later, they found themselves back in their driveway without knowing what had happened, confused, shocked, and afraid. The couple claimed that they traveled to a star system 39 light years from Earth, Zeta Reticuli. Before this point, there weren't really many widespread stories of abductions in the United States, so this story caught on wildly. As they were driving home, the couple noticed something bright in the sky. Feeling dizzy and drowsy, the two of them found themselves asleep and waking up in their driveway, completely lost as to how they got there. When they'd awoken, Betty was convinced that they'd experienced a close encounter and went to Air Force to report their sightings. They would spend the next 2 years explaining their case to various government officials and medical professionals. Mr. Barney Hill would go on to recount to a psychiatrist that he was having nightmarish, repetitive dreams. He would recall these creatures with slanted eyes and gray skins that took them on board and experimented on them by taking samples of their flesh and hair. The two underwent hypnosis therapy from a licensed psychologist in hopes to uncover what they could have experienced and repressed. And shockingly, Betty Hill was able to draw a map of the stars seemingly from memory, a planet orbiting Zeta Reticuli. The map was nearly spot on, a near perfect recreation of the stars surrounding the actual solar system. This event would end up leading to the Air Force launching Project Blue Book, the clandestine program to research UFO and abduction stories and investigate just what's out there. And if you're looking for more UFO content, even stuff on Project Blue Book, we've got all of that and then some. Come take a look through at all the declassified files, stories of abductions, sightings, close encounters, and way more. So stay subscribed, stay scared, but more importantly, stay watching this video. I worked hard on it. We got lots more abduction stories coming up for you in just a second. Number 4, Terrell Copeland. For some, too many abduction stories come from a disreputable source, you know? Well, our next story comes from a former United States Marine, Terrell Copeland, a man who'd seen the brink and back and had never been shook like this before in his life. Pop those ears open and take a listen. Copeland reported this in 2007. He was living in his Virginia apartment when he saw an orb of white light across the street and hovering in the air, some 300 meters above the ground and changing colors rapidly. Now, Terrell had the same reaction most people like you and I might have seeing a glowing, colorful disco ball in the sky, and he thought, well, that's kind of weird, something's wrong. So he recorded it, posted footage online, and claims this is where his life took a dark turn. He was taking a nap in his apartment, and he said it sounded as if someone was breaking in. He called out into the darkness, asking who was invading his space, and he saw the doorknob move and heard scratching at his door. He grabbed a firearm that he kept in his apartment and went to go ready it, but found himself completely frozen, unable to move no matter how bad he wanted to. He claims he heard a voice that spoke to him, internally, as if it was his own thoughts, saying, "You don't need to do that. We won't harm you." I'm pretty sure if I heard that from inside my head, I would leap out my window just to be safe and take my chances somersaulting down the road because I'm probably safer there. Now, doctors thought this incident was sleep paralysis, a condition in which one can experience vivid auditory and visual hallucinations during a period of insomnia and even freeze up. But Copeland would complain of hours missing that he couldn't remember. He said there was a span of about 4 hours over the course of 2 nights that he couldn't remember a single second of. So Copeland began to keep notes and sketches of his memories as he started to have these blocked memories resurfacing. He claimed that he saw a person with an elongated skull and pitch black eyes, and said he had a vivid memory of standing on a balcony waving at a cylinder-shaped ship. On a positive note for all of this, Copeland says that he doesn't believe this incident has haunted him, but feels that it's made him a better person and asking more questions, and it's definitely given him a story to tell at parties. Number 3, Frederick Valentich. Frederick Valentich was an Australian pilot. He was well trained, and he was an avid enthusiast of UFOs and extraterrestrials. Lucky for him, he might have seen one. Sadly for him, it was the last time anyone saw him. It was 1978, and Frederick disappeared over his 125 nautical mile training flight over the Australian mainland. While at 4,500 feet in the air, Valentich reported that there was an unidentifiable craft following behind him. Melbourne Flight Services insisted that there wasn't any other aircraft in the space with him, but Frederick replied back, "No, there's something something on my tail. He described it as glowing with 4 repeating bright lights and rushing past him. Valentik said it was shiny, metallic, and chrome, and he was on radio with air control for 5 minutes before he started mysteriously experiencing engine trouble. The flight controller asked him again what was following him. Valentik responded, "It's hovering and it is not an aircraft." And this was the last thing anyone ever heard from Frederick Valentik. Authorities were completely unable to recover his craft, and after an intense search, threw their shoulders up at a loss. A local farmer alleged that he had seen a strange flying object in the sky the same day as Valentik's disappearance. The farmer went on to explain that he claims he saw the plane attached to this UFO. He told officials that he was scared to tell anyone about what he had seen for fear he would be the town laughingstock if he was a farmer raving about a UFO. Tragically, in the end, we're no closer to understanding what happened to Frederick now than we were all those years ago in 1978. Did Frederick get his wish? Did he get to see an alien up close? Did they take him back to the stars? Or who knows? And we may never know. I don't know. Number 2, Travis Walton. Alien abduction stories can be a little much sometimes. I'm sure you can agree. Even for those with very open minds, you know, they all seem kind of the same, and usually you can poke holes through them and find all the little weird details that don't add up. Well, take a listen to this one. Travis Walton's story is one of the most famous abduction examples on record. You might be familiar with it before if you study UFO stuff a lot. I've covered it a few times on this channel before because I think it is one of the most fascinating abduction stories. So let's hear it. In 1975, Travis Walton was working as a logger on an otherwise unremarkable day. And he was with 6 other loggers driving around in the forest when they saw something incredibly bright shining at them through the treetops. One of the men claimed that it looked like a flattened saucer. Walton stepped out of the truck to investigate and was struck by some invisible force that had knocked him backward. This startled the rest of the crew, who drove off in a flurry. And it's a great way to find out who your real friends are. Your real friends are not the guys who will leave you in the woods where you're about to get abducted. I wouldn't do that to you. When the crew returned, Walton had vanished. Travis awoke and had thought that he'd been taken to a hospital because suddenly he found himself in a blindingly bright, sterile room and could hear people moving around him. But it wasn't until he got a good look at his doctors that he realized something was very wrong. 3 feet tall, brown quarter-sized pupils, and marshmallow-like skin. Walton freaked out, I think as most of us probably would do, and was restrained by his captors. He fought them off, but was greeted by a tall creature that he said resembled human, but was masked by an intimidating helmet, kind of a Darth Vader deal. This masked creature took Walton and escorted him back into the operating room, put a translucent mask over his face, while Walton drifted out of consciousness over and over again, unsure if anything that was happening was real. The next thing he remembers is walking alongside a highway as if nothing had ever happened. He eventually found his way to a phone and called for his brother-in-law, who panickedly asked what had happened. It turned out that Walton had been gone for 5 days. He was untraceable. Search parties had formed looking for him, sent dogs and choppers, tracked him from the woods, but no one could find any sign of him, as if he'd blinked right out of existence, and then blinked right back. Travis swore what happened to him was absolutely real, an abduction, and he's maintained this ever since that fateful week in 1975. Now, if you really think this story is fascinating, and you wish you could have seen some footage of what Travis described, unfortunately he didn't bring his camcorder. You can, however, watch a 90s movie directly based off the case called Fire in the Sky. It's on Amazon Prime or something, I'm sure. And finally, number 1, the Berkshire incident. Now here's the thing with most UFO sightings. They're isolated scenarios, you know? One sleep-deprived night watchman sees something weird out the corner of his eye. Somebody up way too late sees something up in the sky. It's hard to believe just one person's story. That's why it's significantly harder to write off the experience of Berkshire County, where half the town reported seeing the same UFO. Uncanny and unprecedented. 250 residents and more all reported seeing the same UFOs flying across the night sky. So it was 1969. Multiple residents across town spotted blinding lights above Sheffield in the southern Berkshires. Witnesses reported that the lights they saw were beaming from saucers, bright lights onto the horizon. Some residents said that they felt that time was slowing down as they watched the object, claiming that it left them frozen and stunned, wondering just what it was they were looking at. One witness comes from a young student, one Thomas Reed, who said that he saw one of the floating entities, a glowing orb, dashing outside the forest. He claims he heard an eruption of crickets and frogs and a loud deafening sound, and then inexplicably 2 hours had passed without anyone understanding why or how. His mother and grandmother had switched car seats as well. Now, as an adult, Thomas Reed claims that over time his family has corroborated what had happened to them. He speaks of being in this immensely large, almost infinitely spanning metal hangar with hallways and hallways stretching out forever. Thomas Reed took a polygraph test telling this story and was found to be 99.1% 100% truthful. Multiple people across Berkshire that day reported similar stories. Balls of light, flying saucers, losses of time, finding themselves somewhere they couldn't explain. The residents of Berkshire may never get to the bottom of what happened there, but I know the truth is out there. And I know Top 5 Scary is gonna find it, I'm pretty sure. Number 5, the Yautja. In most movies or stories, aliens abduct humans to run tests on them, to harvest us for our DNA, for resources, scary things that we do to animals on our planet. But that's not how the Yautja of the Predator franchise play. They could give a damn about science, DNA, technology, any of that really. It's solely about the ritualistic, honorable act of the hunt and pulling your spine out. Now normally the Yautja seem to like coming in on our turf to hunt, as shown in Prey and Predator 1 and 2, but hey, just like you and me, the Yautja get lazy every now and again and turn to galactic Uber Eats and order in. In the severely underrated third installment in the franchise, Predators, a group of berserk Yautja abduct a group of wayward humans, mostly mercenaries, to serve as their prey on their home planet. Sort of like when, royals and like nobles bring a bunch of like foxes and ducks to shoot on their property. Now the Yautja, they're pretty honorable, all things considered, even under these conditions, so if you're a bona fide badass, maybe you'll be able to take them on and survive. But if you're just too pathetic, they do let you go. But most of us, the odds are pretty poor that we're going to win the 1v1 in a martial combat against a creature who treats hunting people as a rite of passage. I would say the odds are very poor that if you were abducted by the Predators, anything nice would happen. Assuming they do see you worthy as a fair fight, they pull no stops to ensure victory, blades sharper than yours, laser cannons, physically imposing strength, and if all else fails, a bomb when they die as a last resort, so all that hullabaloo about honor and the code is kind of made up. And if they deem you unworthy of fighting you, and they let you go, that's like way worse to me, because that's just an ego blow. Like, come on, I'm worthy of hunting. Anyway, if you're looking for more stories about aliens, fictional or not fictional, we've got loads of that on the channel and then some. Seriously, type UFO into the search bar, you will see lots and lots. We got something for you to watch all night. But if you're not subscribed already or yet, you should. So hit subscribe, make sure you hit that bell so you don't miss a single video of ours. But do that at the end of this video, because I got 4 more alien abductors coming up for you right now. Coming up next is the Collectors from the Mass Effect series. Mass Effect is one of the best video game trilogies of all time if you don't consider all 3 games being good and important quality in a trilogy. Now the Milky Way of the Mass Effect series is filled to bursting with all these cool, colorful, and innovative, inventive aliens that all speak in pleasant English dialects, but few are as mysterious and terrifying as the Collectors. Their name kind of buries the lead, to be honest. The Collectors make them out, it kind of sounds like they're gonna be cute. Like they're just super into mint in box Funko Pops. I wish. The Collectors are an insectoid, enigmatic species that live on the edge of the galaxy who get their name for their propensity of collecting and dealing in odd livestock. 12 left-handed members of one alien species, a collection of aliens with differently colored eyes, you name it. Now when we get to them in Mass Effect 2, they've become very occupied with collecting humans en masse. Not just 1 or 2, they abduct entire planets at a time to the deaf ears of the Council, who are ignorant to the threat. The Collectors are revealed to be servants of the Reapers, the ultimate villain of the Mass Effect series, an eldritch threat of sentient starships from beyond the Veil. So what are the Collectors doing with all their human collections? Posing them in cool little scenes? Well, we discover about halfway through the game that they've been juicing humans, for lack of a better word, into a pulpy, thick, viscous substance they used to distill humanity for their genetic material to craft into a new species, a humanoid Reaper, which looks pretty horrifying. Looks like this. It's the kind of synthetic nightmare that James Cameron would probably love. In the game proper, if you're too late to rescue the crew of your starship, the Normandy, you get to see the horrifying process as you watch your crew get juiced to fuel up the human Reaper. Shouldn't have spent all that time playing Kesar at the Citadel, buddy. Should have focused on your work. Number 3, the Borg. The Borg is a terrifying and one of, if not the most iconic antagonist in Star Trek history. Maybe some Trekkies in the comments can argue that maybe it's the Klingons. I think it's the Borg personally, but that's just me. They're a cybernetic species driven by a collective hive mind, seeking to assimilate other races into their collective consciousness. I feel like there's actually a probably good chance they might get along with the Collectors. I feel like they got similar goals. The Borg operate as a collective entity, with each individual drone interconnected through cybernetic implants and linked to a central intelligence known as the Borg Queen. And they're kind of like bugs, kind of like ants, if that wasn't coming across. Their primary objective is to achieve perfection through the assimilation of other species. They forcibly incorporate individuals into their collective, stripping away their individuality and memories and turn them into drones. Now this sounds pretty harsh, but you do get to have like an iPad glued to your face and you look pretty cool, so it's not all bad. The Borg really don't believe in things like emotion. You can't reason with them or talk them down, much as Picard might try. Their catchphrase, resistance is futile, really sums up their mantra and sort of views on life. They have a vast network of ships and drones. They know they're going to overpower you and assimilate you into the Borg, and that's their sole drive, so why even bother fighting? They know they're going to win. Cold, calculated, efficient. You gotta love it. Now, if you were to be assimilated into the Borg ship, I actually don't think it would be that pleasant. I can't imagine the process of being forcibly converted into a cyborg would be enjoyable while it's happening. Afterwards, maybe, once you get acclimated to your new RoboCop body. Plus, once you're part of a cold, unfeeling machine focused solely on assimilation, you don't gotta worry about the wants, the needs, or the overwhelming stress of individualism. You might even find that you enjoy being part of a collective, Nothing to worry about. And it's not a totally irreversible process, Captain Picard was reversed in a process that left him totally fine and harboring absolutely no mental damage or scars whatsoever. So you know what? I'm sounding it out. The Borg sound awesome. I would Borg up in a heartbeat. I would love to live in a big space cube. Number 2, Roger's species. I am a huge fan of American Dad. I never thought I would be talking about American Dad on a scary channel. I don't think I should even be talking about it now, but here we are. If you're a really keen dadder, maybe you've noticed that there's been a minuscule American Dad reference in almost every single one of my video intros when I tell you to dive on in. I think it's one of the funniest animated sitcoms ever made, and that's in no small part thanks to Roger, who is one of the most heinously offensive, funny characters ever put to screen. He's a hedonist, he's debaucherous, and he gets away with unimaginable, horrible things that any other fictional character wouldn't, but Roger's an alien, so I guess it's okay. Roger's part of an alien species that looks like the traditional little grays that you see in pop culture and in like little souvenir shops around Roswell. His species is shown to be fairly innovative, as he's got all manner of gizmos and gadgets at his disposal whenever the episode calls for it, suggesting his species is very technologically advanced. Now, throughout the series, we never really get too much of a glimpse at Roger's home life or his species or his backstory. We know that he got sent down to Earth years ago as part of the Roswell incident to serve as a crash test dummy, but it isn't until all the way in the show's 8th season that we finally get a look at Roger's home planet, where it's revealed that his entire species lives on a giant space station that's been modeled to look like a 90s shopping mall. Roger's species travels the galaxy, abducting people of all manner of species, and makes them work out the rest of their days at a food court pop-up of a food representing that species. For humanity, we are delegated to shawarma representing us, which I have to be honest, if I was going to narrow the human experience to a single food, that's a damn good one to pick. I've never met a shawarma I didn't like. We see all of this happen through the eyes of Jeff, the perpetually red-eyed slacker of the Smith family, who after a dupe by Roger finds himself abducted, serving them dutifully as a shawarma cook. Now, it sounds like it might be okay as far as fates go, condemned to working the grill at a food court. That's something someone right now is doing. But as part of this condemnation, because the alien emperor ruling their species was heartbroken, he forbids any and all love on the spaceship, right down to taking a particularly special organ off your body, if you can kind of read between the lines there. So if the life of a eunuch and serving fast food in space doesn't sound that bad, then yeah, it's not such a bad deal. But if you're not a fan of those things, it's a pretty horrible life to be doomed to. And finally, coming in at number 1 for this list is going to be the horrific unknown aliens from Prey. That's the 2006 video game called Prey, not the 2007 video game called Prey. That's also about being on an alien spaceship, but not at all related to the 2006 video game. And both of these things are totally unrelated to the 2022 film Prey, which is about the Predator. Are you following me? I'll throw in one more Prey for you. You might not remember Prey, and even if you did remember it, it can't be purchased at all, making this odd relic a bit of lost media, which is kind of why I wanted to talk about it, shine a little light on it. Prey was interesting for more than a couple reasons. Number 1, you played a Cherokee character who is surprisingly not a walking stereotype. He's voiced by an actual indigenous actor. It's pretty rare for any indigenous character, really. Second, Prey might genuinely be one of the most horrifying games ever released, and gotta be one of the most traumatizing, scary depictions of an alien abduction in maybe any piece of media ever. I know I'm hyperbolizing a bit, but man, Prey made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The opening of the game captures the vibe of an abduction, like perfectly. I wouldn't know, I've never been. abducted. One moment you're in a roadhouse in Arizona, the next you, your grandfather, and girlfriend are all sucked up and carried away in a horrifying industrial factory line that really dehumanizes the abductees, treating them like nothing more than meat. As you watch in gut-wrenchingly horrifying detail as your grandfather is processed into chunky salsa before your very eyes while you're helpless to stop it. I remember watching the demo for Prey when I was a young scrapper, and a full 17 years later, I still remember every second of this brutal intro in crystal clear HD, like burned into my retinas. Now the aliens in Prey are pretty simple. We don't ever get to learn what their name is or what their deal really is, but we know they come down to the planets and they harvest the local inhabitants to make them into soldiers for their army or juice them for nutrients, or sometimes a flirty little combination of both. In-game we see several enemies that are made of the aliens' twisted experiments and merging meat with metal. Suffice to say, no part of their abduction process looks pleasant. At best, you get juiced quickly. At worst, they turn you into a horrifying little machine servant. Now, Prey is definitely a bit more of an unknown game, since I mentioned earlier, unless you already own a physical copy, you can't play it. I wouldn't say it's an amazing game. We're not missing out too much. The actual mechanics are pretty basic, save for some really cool tech stuff involving portals and casting your spirit outside of your body, but the visuals and atmosphere of Prey are some of the most unpleasant and terrifying out there. I really would recommend looking up a playthrough of it if you're interested. There's stuff in Prey that is so hardcore you literally cannot depict it in video games anymore. ESRB really frowns on some of that stuff, and you better believe YouTube Guidelines does as well. That's why we're dancing around some of these words.
Starting off at number 5, Mark Zuckerberg. Now, I know this might sound a little far-fetched, but trust me when I say that Zuck is the most obvious human-alien hybrid on this entire list. Mark Zuckerberg's status as one of these hybrids raises intriguing questions about the nature of our society and the extent of extraterrestrial involvement on Earth. Zuckerberg's hybrid heritage also has profound implications for his role as a tech titan. His unique blend of human and alien characteristics provide him with advanced cognitive abilities, allowing him to envision and develop groundbreaking technologies that transcend our current understanding. These abilities act as the driving force behind his success in founding Meta Platforms Incorporated, formerly known as Facebook, and his capacity to shape the digital landscape. The widely known conspiracy theory that Zuckerberg is a reptilian actually stems from the distinctive features of his alien lineage. I mean, just look at the guy. His physical appearance exhibits reptilian traits such as scaly skin or distinctive eye patterns, which have led some to speculate about his true identity. This speculative aspect of his heritage might add an air of mystique to his public persona, contributing to the intrigue surrounding his life. However, skeptics often demand concrete proof of Zuckerberg's hybrid identity, as most of the evidence we have is his masterminding of his way to being the biggest name in the tech industry, and of course, his weird behavior and looks. Some chalk it up to him being just a weird guy, but here at Top 5 Scary, I think the answer is clear. Debates over Zuckerberg's hybrid nature persist, adding a layer of fascination and uncertainty to his public image. But what do you guys think? Is Zuckerberg an alien, reptile, or is this all just a bunch of nonsense? Let me know in the comments. Next up at number 4, Neanderthals. About 40,000 years ago in Europe, two distinct groups of humans came face to face in a forest, an event that left both sides bewildered. On one side stood the Homo sapiens, our ancestors known as Cro-Magnons, with their similar appearance but distinct communication methods. They were modern humans, equipped with advanced tools and hunting skills. On the other side, the Neanderthals, a group that had been living in Europe for 200,000 years and had evolved differently, adapting to the northern climate with larger bodies, prominent noses, and larger brains than Homo sapiens. Contrary to popular belief, Neanderthals were not brutish cavemen. The stooped depiction of a Neanderthal was based on the examination of an elderly individual with severe arthritis. Evidence suggests that the Neanderthals cared for their elders, providing specialized food and support for them. They even practiced burial rituals with care, laying their deceased to rest with flowers and evergreens in Iraq. Neanderthals might have had a more tonal and musical language, with gestures suggesting a form of communication that was possibly more tender than that of Homo sapiens. When the two groups encountered each other, the crucial question arose: friend or foe? Anthropologists have debated the outcome. Some suggest that Homo sapiens may have attacked or outcompeted Neanderthals. Some researchers present an alternative theory, that they may have integrated through mating, eventually merging into a single species, the one we have today. Genetic evidence lends credence to this hypothesis. Most humans today, particularly those of European and Asian descent, carry 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA in their cells. This genetic legacy serves as a compelling testament to an ancient encounter and possible cooperation between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, suggesting that they may indeed be the result of a remarkable fusion between our species and, you guessed it, an intelligent alien species. That's right, Neanderthals... That's right, I'm sorry. That's right, Neanderthals are not merely an extinct branch of our family tree, but a representation of a unique amalgamation of Homo sapiens and an intelligent alien species. This paradigm-shifting perspective challenges our conventional understanding of human evolution and prompts us to reconsider the profound impact of encounters with intelligent life beyond Earth on the development and survival of our species, Homo sapiens. Number 3, abduction visions. In the chilling world of alien abductions, a deeply unsettling phenomenon emerges: encounters with hybrids. Abductees, regardless of their age or gender, recount their harrowing experiences with these unnerving beings during their abduction ordeals. These encounters revolve around a presentation, a disturbing interaction that exposes the abductee to hybrid entities displaying a nightmarish fusion of human and extraterrestrial features, typically associated with the elusive Greys. The presentation phase, a spine-chilling element within the abduction narrative, has sparked chilling debates among researchers. Some, like folklorist Thomas Bullard, contend that it is a relatively recent addition to abduction accounts, adding an even more sinister twist to these terrifying encounters. For those who endure this phase, it constitutes a profoundly unsettling experience, a descent into a chilling nightmare realm. The hybrids manifest a grotesque blend of human and alien traits, plunging abductees into a terrifying abyss of existential dread. As they reach their malevolent maturity, they become deeply entrenched in these operations, no longer serving subjects for presentation to the abductees, but rather as harbingers of fear and despair. Reports from abductees recount these hybrids residing in malevolent facilities or chambers, where clusters of them may be present. Some ghastly narratives detail incubation chambers, horrific spaces filled with grotesque, fluid-filled containers harboring the grotesque and malformed hybrid entities, suggesting a horrific and twisted reproductive process orchestrated by the abductors. During the presentation phase, the abductors manifest sinister expectations of the abductees. They may be forced to engage in sinister displays of affection toward the hybrid entities, either through physical contact or by being forced into disturbingly close engagement. In some cases, the hybrids torment the abductee's psyche with a nightmarish mind scan, delving into their deepest fears and emotions. Female abductees may even be coerced into unspeakable acts, ushering horror toward the hybrid, a grim spectacle that spawns a maelstrom of dread and despair. These encounters with hybrids have spawned speculation that these aliens walk among the Earth, and that these hybrids that they see during their abductions are actual humans that exist on the Earth, spawning the question of, do these hybrids emerge from a horrific alchemy of invasive reproductive procedures, a monstrous synthesis of human and alien elements that defies comprehension? The phenomenon of these hybrids remains one of the most bone-chilling and inscrutable aspects of the alien abduction experience, casting a pall of terror that envelops both extraterrestrial life and human existence in a never-ending nightmare. While on the topic of alien abductions, let's move on to number 2, alien abductees themselves. And now, I know that the notion of alien-human hybrids walking among us today may sound like science fiction, but according to Young-Hae Chi, an instructor at the University of Oxford in England, this outlandish claim is a reality. Chi, who teaches Korean at the university, believes that aliens are conducting a secret breeding program to create hybrid beings capable of surviving the impacts of climate change. Reports of alien abductions have persisted for years, with up to 6% of all Americans claiming to have experienced such encounters. These abductions typically involve extraterrestrials taking captives aboard their saucers, extracting extracting juice from men and impregnating women to produce hybrid offspring. The motives behind these bizarre breeding experiments have sparked various theories, including aliens facing reproductive challenges on their home planet, or a plot to create hybrids that would assist them in taking over Earth. While scientists generally dismiss these claims due to a lack of concrete evidence, Chi has embraced the idea. He points to the increasing number of reported alien abductions over several decades as a key piece of evidence. Chi relies on the work of David Jacobs, a retired Temple University historian who has interviewed over 1,000 abduction claimants using hypnotic regression to unearth their memories of encounters with aliens. Chi ties the growing number of abductees documented by Jacobs to the rise in atmospheric greenhouse gases, particularly carbon dioxide. He posits that these abductions are a response to climate change rather than a cause. According to Chi, the aliens are creating hybrids capable of thriving in a warmer world. These hybrids, with a blend of alien and human genetics, would be more resilient to the challenges posed by climate change. However, critics argue that this theory oversimplifies the complexities of climate change. While hybrids might withstand temperature increases, they do not address the core climate issues, such as rising sea levels and the impact on crops and ecosystems. Chi's theory also relies on a correlation between abduction reports and rising CO2 levels, a link that may be coincidental rather than causal. Chi's assertion that alien-human hybrids live among us, appearing almost indistinguishable from humans by the second generation, raises further skepticism. The inability to identify these hybrids conveniently raises doubts about the theory's credibility. In the end, Chi's theory remains an intriguing yet highly speculative notion. Whether or not we are sharing our world with alien-human hybrids is a mystery that, for now, eludes scientific validation. Bet you didn't expect this video to delve into climate change science, but here we are anyways. And finishing things off at number 1, you. Yes, you. On top of those with Neanderthal blood and all of you alien abduction survivors, there is a decent chance that each and every one of us are actually alien-human hybrids. This is thanks to the ancient aliens that inhabited the Earth thousands of years ago, known as the Anunnaki. The concept that all humans are potential alien-human hybrids, thanks to the intervention of the Anunnaki, ancient astronauts from thousands of years ago, is a captivating theory that has intrigued many. According to this hypothesis, the Anunnaki, an extraterrestrial race, visited Earth in the distant past and played a pivotal role in shaping human civilization. Proponents of this theory argue that the Anunnaki engaged in genetic manipulation, blending their own extraterrestrial DNA with that of early humans. This extraordinary intervention allegedly resulted in the creation of a hybrid species, combining the genetic attributes of the Anunnaki with those of indigenous Earthlings. The Anunnaki, as described in Sumerian mythology, were revered as godlike beings who descended from the heavens. These celestial visitors were believed to possess advanced knowledge and technology, which they generously shared with humanity. It suggested that this divine interaction led to the rapid advancement of human society, including the development of agriculture, architecture, and various other fundamental aspects of civilization. Proponents of the theory often cite interpretations of ancient texts and artifacts as evidence. They argue that these historical records contain hidden references to the Anunnaki's involvement in human affairs, depicting encounters between humans and these advanced extraterrestrial beings. The idea of human-alien hybridization has a powerful allure and resonates with those who seek an unconventional explanation for human origins. While it remains a speculative hypothesis, it continues to captivate the imagination, offering a unique perspective on the possibility of our connection to celestial visitors from eons past. So yeah guys, looks like we're all aliens after all. No one is safe.
In 5th place, we have helicopter hieroglyphs. So depictions of modern crafts found in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs have been hailed as proof of time travel and even an advanced alien civilization visiting our ancestors. For folks like us, hieroglyphs appearing to resemble planes and helicopters in artwork done thousands of years ago, have been hailed as unequivocal proof that the ancient Egyptians were visited by beings who brought with them advanced technology from the future. With many supporters of the theory saying if the ancient civilization was putting helicopters and modern spacecrafts in their artwork, then they must have seen them, or at least observed images of them, which, makes sense to me. The helicopter name is a name given to part of an Egyptian hieroglyph carving from the temple of Seti I at Abydos. They've been interpreted as an out-of-place artifact, depicting a helicopter, as well as other examples of modern technology. The initial carving was made during the reign of Seti I and translates to, "He who repulses the 9 enemies of Egypt." It was later filled in with plaster and recarved during the reign of Ramesses II with the title, "He who protects Egypt and overthrows the foreign countries." Over time, the plaster has eroded away, leaving both both inscriptions partially visible and creating a palimpsest-like effect of overlapping hieroglyphs. As with all dates in ancient Egypt, the actual dates of Seti's reign are unclear, and various historians propose different dates, with 1294 BC to 1279 BC and 1290 BC to 1279 BC being the most commonly used by scholars today. Nevertheless, the 3,000-year-old hieroglyphs found in the temple in Abydos are said to depict a helicopter, plane, and futuristic aircraft amongst the usual insects, symbols, and snakes. Ooh. Snakes. One popular theory, known as the Ancient Aliens theory, is that, like I said already, the advanced race who brought details of futuristic technology to the Egyptians were visitors from a far-flung, highly advanced planet, visiting to share their knowledge with the primitive communities here on Earth. The beliefs claim these extraterrestrials were the ones behind the development of the pyramids, Stonehenge, and other world-famous monuments. And this is not the last I'll be talking about that today. Steve Mera is a UFOologist who tours the country giving talks on the research he conducts, and at UFO conferences, he produces these hieroglyphs as, part of the debate. During one talk, he pointed out that the helicopter, describing how it has what looks like a rotor blade and a rudder, also possibly a wing, they had to have the visual from somewhere. Once again. In fourth place, we have Nazca Line. On a high and dry plateau some 200 miles southeast of Lima, more than 800 long, straight white lines are etched into the Peruvian desert. Looks to kind of be random. Joining them are 300 geometric shapes and 70 figures of animals, including a spider, a monkey, and a hummingbird. Okay, if I talk about spiders one more time today, I'm gonna jump out of my skin. Eep. I swear I used to claim my arachnophobia was mild, but it's getting worse by the week around here. The longest of the lines run, straight as an arrow for miles, and the biggest shapes stretch nearly 1,200 feet across and are best viewed from the air. Scientists suspect that the Nazca drawings are as many as 2 millennia old, and because of their age, size, visibility from above, and mysterious nature, the lines are often cited as one of the best examples of alien handiwork on Earth. Just, gonna emphasize that. Otherwise, how would an ancient culture have been able to make such huge designs in the desert without being able to fly? And also, why? First studied in the early 1900s, the designs were initially suspected to be aligned with constellations or solstices, but more recent work suggests that the Nazca lines point to ceremonial or ritual sites related to water and fertility. And in addition to being visible from the air, the shapes can be seen from surrounding foothills. In third place, we have the Rosetta Stone. So the Rosetta Stone is one of the most famous objects in the British Museum, and is technically a broken part of a bigger stone slab. It has a message carved into it, written in 3 types of writing that helped experts learn to read Egyptian hieroglyphs. So the writing on the stone is an official message, called a decree, about Ptolemy V. I swear I tried to look it up. If I forgot, I'm so sorry folks, I am running on an hour and a half of sleep today. The decree was copied on, large stone slabs called stelae, which were put in every temple in Egypt. The Rosetta Stone is one of these copies, so not particularly important at the time, but remember a moment ago when I mentioned it has 3 types of writing? So specifically, hieroglyphs used for priestly decrees, Demotic, which was the cursive Egyptian script used for daily purposes, meaning language of the people, and Ancient Greek, the language of the administrations, and the rulers of Egypt at this point were Greco-Macedonian after Alexander the Great's conquest. Now, here's where the aliens come in for me. What if these things also provided a means of translation for alien species? What if whoever visited to help build the pyramids and the helicopter-looking devices knew how to translate hieroglyphs, but not the other common dialects, and the boards also served as a helpful lexicon for them? The decrees were everywhere in Egypt, providing ample source material. So the Rosetta Stone was found broken and incomplete, featuring only 14 lines of hieroglyphic script. Although accounts of the stone's discovery in July of 1799 are now rather vague, the story generally accepted is that it was found by accident by the soldiers in Napoleon Bonaparte's army. They discovered the Rosetta Stone on July 15th of 1799 while digging the foundations of an addition to a fort near the town of Rashid in the Nile Delta. It had apparently been built into a very old wall. The officer in charge, Pierre-François Bouchard, realized the importance of the discovery. On Napoleon's defeat, the stone became the property of the British under the terms of the Treaty of Alexandria, along with other antiquities that the French had found. The stone was shipped to England and arrived in Portsmouth on February of 1802. When it was discovered, no one knew how to read ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, but because the inscriptions say the same thing in 3 different scripts, and scholars could still read ancient Greek, the Rosetta Stone became a valuable key to deciphering. Soon after the end of the 4th century AD, when hieroglyphs had, gone out of use, the knowledge of how to read and write them just disappeared. But, like I said before, in the early years of the 19th century, scholars were able to use the Greek inscription on the stone as that lovely little translation key. Thomas Young, an English physicist, was one of the first to show that some of the hieroglyphs on the Rosetta Stone wrote the sounds of a royal name, that of Ptolemy. French scholar Jean-François Champollion then realized that hieroglyphs recorded the sound of the Egyptian language. This laid the foundations of our knowledge of ancient Egyptian language and culture. Champollion made a crucial step in understanding ancient Egyptian writing. He identified the hieroglyphs that were used to write the names of non-Egyptian rulers. Champollion inscribed this copy of the published paper alphabetic hieroglyphs meaning "à mon ami Dubois." He then made a second crucial breakthrough, realizing that the alphabetic signs were used not only for foreign names, but also for Egyptian names. Together with his knowledge of the Coptic language, which derived from ancient Egyptian, this allowed him to begin reading hieroglyphic inscriptions fully. After the stone was shipped to England in February of 1802, it was presented to the British Museum by George III in July of that year. So the Rosetta Stone and other sculptures were placed in temporary structures in the museum grounds because the floors were not strong enough to bear their weight. It has been on display in the British Museum since 1802, with only one break to, take a moment. So, go visit it. In second place, we have the graffiti inside the Great Pyramids. In the heart of the city of El Giza stands the Giza Pyramid Complex, also known as the Necropolis. This architectural marvel contains 3 pyramids: the Pyramid of Khafre, the Pyramid of Menkore, and of course, the Great Pyramid of Giza. Although each was created for a different pharaoh, many historians are convinced that their collective design is cohesive and intentional, as the arrangement of these structures is possibly a representation of the Orion constellation. The complex's crown jewel, though, is the Great Pyramid. Most believe that it was erected under the watchful eye of the pharaoh Khufu to be a tomb where the king would complete his transformation into a god in the afterlife. Standing approximately 146.7 meters high and stretching around 234 meters wide, it looms above everything around it. It was assembled from 2.5 million stone blocks, some of which came from over 500 miles away, which is really amazing when you consider that they didn't have the use of wheels at the time, and that construction took only 20 years. Okay, if that sounds like a lot to anyone, try living in Toronto where construction takes that long to renovate a single road. And by the time it's done being renovated, workers take so long they have to do it again. Whoever designed and built the pyramids had incredibly detailed knowledge and architectural skill. When completed, the pyramid towered over the city, and its corners aligned almost exactly with the points of a compass. In general, Egyptians often oriented structures to true north quite precisely, likely using stars such as Polaris to orient their work, and the Great Pyramid is no exception. The origins and composition of the Great Pyramid, our oldest wonder of the world and its slightly less famous kin, have long confounded scholars. How did engineers manage to achieve the seemingly impossible feats that building these masterpieces would require? And the truth is, no one knows for sure. While some believe that construction workers may have used large ramps to transport the stones, this theory has been largely disproven, as there is little archaeological evidence to support the claim. Naturally, theories arguing that aliens must have constructed the pyramid have come into play. It's true, it would have been difficult for humans to build the pyramids, and there is precious little historical evidence of how they were built. Citing this, as well as the architectural and scientific questions that surround the pyramids, many people, kinda like me, have proposed that aliens came to Earth in ancient times and helped kickstart civilizations. According to these theories, the aliens were instrumental in helping ancient Egyptians build their masterpieces. Believers like us argue that in order to design the pyramids as they are, one would need a bird's eye view, the kind that could be provided from, say, a flying saucer. They also believe that in order to create an object that obeys the so-called golden ratio, a mathematical relationship based on the special number of phi, the Egyptians would have needed help from outside sources. The alien theory has persisted to the present day. For example, in 2001, Russian scientist Dr. Veski Abduction claimed that the KGB had found ancient alien remains inside the Great Pyramid. Okay, come on. The Great Pyramid's inner network of shafts, passageways, and chambers is so intricate that it's hard to, not to understand why people believed that some kind of divinity or superintelligence was involved. Also, the only hieroglyphs inside are graffiti, alleged to be left behind by those who worked on the structure as a signature, which only further supports my theory on the aliens only knowing that to communicate with us by. Like time capsules, the pyramids are physical symbols of ancient wisdom, made of glittering golden limestone and always remaining around a cool 20 degrees centigrade inside. They provide glimpses of an ancient society that once neared the kind of technological intelligence we possess today. Hey, maybe in 2,000 years, historians will speculate about the extraterrestrial origins of our fallen civilization. And then by then, they'll be able to consult aliens for help. And in first place, we have Stonehenge. So, the mystery of Stonehenge has baffled historians for centuries. One of the never-ending questions about the ancient site is whether or not it contains hieroglyphs. And in 2015, a scientific paper was published by mathematician Dr. A.E.'s Lobin in the form of a diary. He discovered Egyptian hieroglyphs in Stonehenge and determined the site as the solar Egyptian temple of the god Atum. There are several other theories that suggest that the site may have been used to record messages or a story. One theory suggests that the stones themselves may have been carved with hieroglyphic. This theory is based on the fact that many other ancient sites, such as the pyramids of Egypt, were decorated with hieroglyphs. Another theory suggests that the stones may have been used as a giant sundial, with the hieroglyphics acting as a way to record the movements of the sun. This theory is supported by the fact that Stonehenge is aligned with the movements of the sun and moon. Whatever the true purpose of it is clear that the site was of great importance to the ancient people who built it. Speaking of which, who built that thing and why did they build it? Napalitano, as it is now known, is not easily accessible. It is thought that the stones are among the oldest astronomical alignments of megaliths in the world. They were built by a nomadic society in the early centuries of Stonehenge, and it is possible that they were built by an ancient civilization. Also, the tomb there was only filled with cattle bones, which is pretty unusual. My theory, and ergo why it made today's list, is that the anomalies point more towards alien advanced communication instead of isolated humans. Also, there haven't really been signs of human life, only cattle like I mentioned before, which supports my theory. And not to sound like a broken record today, but if there's something I can't leave out, there are things we as humans, can't explain. It furthers my theory that one of the languages aliens can use to communicate with, and the reason they don't visit, more now compared to in history, is because of how much we can no longer communicate with them, now that it's not a regularly used language.
Number 5. Gordon Cooper. Major Gordon Cooper was an astronaut and flying ace of considerable renown, with more than a few accolades to his name. Being the first man to spend a full 24 hours in space solo, and the last American to ever spend a solo orbit around the planet altogether. Besides these lofty accomplishments, he was also very vocal about his belief and insistence of life beyond the stars. He'd experienced many strange things over his career. First, when he was an Air Force pilot in 1951, he says on a routine flight over West Germany, he encountered 3 flying metallic saucers following his plane. The incident was reported and nothing was done. But this would be far from the last strange encounter Cooper would have. In 1963, after orbiting the planet, Cooper was returning home when he noticed a glowing green orb following his capsule, which he described as ethereal. The object was picked up by a radar tracking station in Australia. But most bizarre about all of this is that when Major Cooper touched down and returned home, reporters from NBC told him they were explicitly barred from asking any questions about the unidentified object he'd experienced. Beyond bizarre, isn't it? Cooper outright says he believes higher-ups covered it up, saying on record that in the USA every day our radar instruments capture objects of form and composition unknown to us. And there are thousands of witness reports and a quantity of documents to prove this, but nobody wants to make them public. Why? Because authority is afraid that people may think up God knows what kind of horrible invaders. We have to avoid panic by all means. Now, the implication in his words seem pretty direct, that he thinks the government covers it up because they think we can't handle it. I think we're ready. I mean, after the last couple years, I don't think there's any weirdness you can really throw at us. And if you're looking for great weirdness and great horror content every day, well, I can hook you up with that. All you gotta do is subscribe. Number 4. Ryan Graves. Now, for most of us, seeing a UFO would probably be the highlight of our life, or at the very least our week. But for Lieutenant Ryan Graves, a 10-year Navy veteran, seeing a UFO became a routine. On an interview with CBS on their 60 Minutes, Lieutenant Graves said that he saw UFOs every single day for years. He recounts his first encounter, where he was stunned, saying he saw a mysterious flying object trailing around him, with no markings on it, no exhaust plume, no trail of any kind. He described it as a flying black cube that appeared to have a sphere located inside of it. The pilots in Graves' squadron would report seeing these mysterious cubes constantly during their training exercise, even coming dangerously close to crashing into them and causing them to be labeled a threat. Graves said initially they were skeptical about them being alien craft, which is reasonable, and that his men had been assuming they were highly advanced drones being tested clandestinely. But as time goes on, Graves changed his tune, instead advocating for the discussion to be had about UFOs and if there's more to know out there. He wants to centralize the conversation around UFOs not being an outlandish conspiracy theory, but more of a security concern. But are they really, even? I mean, surely if there was alien life capable of provoking a conflict, they would have done it by now, right? Or perhaps these crafts were just scouts, or something else entirely. All I want to know is the truth. Number 3. Cosmonaut Kovalyonok. When you leave the atmosphere, you should expect to see some things you can't explain. I mean, it's up in space. Well, for Vladimir Kovalyonok, he was in orbit in the summer of 1978. He saw something that would alter his perception of reality forever. He claimed that he saw some floating entity following around the space station, reporting a glowing green ethereal orb, exactly like what Major Gordon Cooper claims to have seen following his capsule. Much like Major Cooper, that wouldn't be the only supernatural extraterrestrial experience Kovalyonok experienced. In 1981, on another voyage through the stars, he saw something unimaginable. He claims that he saw something floating around, resembling a barbell. He said that it was transparent, but that it looked like it had a body inside of it. It did something that is very difficult for me to describe in the point of view of physics. He describes the entity exploding magnificently, combusting an array of golden light, which he described as beautiful. After the explosions, there was a cloud of white smoke and a small sphere, but as they continued orbiting, the smoke and sphere vanished entirely. He goes on to say that he doesn't think whatever he saw was artificial, and that it must have been biological in some way, that it moved in a way that intoned life of some kind. Kovalyonyk was surprised that his fellow cosmonauts did not seem willing to entertain the possibility of it being life from outside the planet, outright dismissing his claims. He's been quoted saying, "Many cosmonauts have seen phenomena which are far beyond the experiences of Earthmen. For 10 years, I never spoke on such things." When he returned home, there were brief investigations that possibly what Kovalyonyk saw was little more than a missile test, and after these brief investigations, the case and the sighting was dropped entirely. Number 2. Hack Planet. Now it's frustrating, I'm sure, to think that there could be answers for the unexplained out there, and no one is willing to share them with us, out of fear we'd react badly. For one man, for one Gary McKinnon, this unknowing was simply too much to bear, and he decided to get the answers the only way he knew how, the easy way, hacking directly into NASA's servers to get at their data. Why would he do that? Why would he risk his whole life and career for this? For the truth, directly. From McKinnon's own mouth, he said, "I knew that governments suppressed anti-gravity UFO-related technologies, free energy, or what they call zero-point energy. This sort of thing should not be kept hidden from the public when pensioners can't pay their fuel bills." So did he find anything worth risking his freedom for? Well, according to Mr. McKinnon, yes he did. He claims to have found something called the Disposure Project, a 400-page document outlining testimonials from all kinds of government agents reporting their sightings and findings on unexplained objects. Fantastically too, Mr. McKinnon claims that he got a hold of a document entitled Non-Terrestrial Officers, listing the names of NASA officers who were to be transferred to new ships. However, McKinnon stated that he could not find the name of any of these ships existing anywhere elsewhere. McKinnon, as well, presumably incredibly satisfied with his findings, vandalized one of NASA's websites, leaving behind a message saying, "Your security is crap, by the way." Utterly hilarious, but it did come back to bite him, as the white hat hacker was swiftly arrested and was to be extradited to the United States to stand trial there. Now the 56-year-old managed to avoid extradition. He still lives in the United Kingdom today, but he's definitely going to want to avoid visiting the US anytime soon, as I sincerely doubt they've forgotten about that little bit of vandalism. Number 1. The UAP report. Well, it's hard-pressed to find any more clear-cut proof that the US government has been researching aerial phenomena and UFOs than the US government outright admitting they've been researching UFOs and aliens for years and releasing all of the documents about it kind of quietly, sliding it underneath the door. Now the actual idea of the report sounds significantly more exciting than it actually is, sadly. It's still very cool, don't get me wrong. But the Pentagon's UAP report isn't quite the smoking ray gun we would hope it is. It doesn't outright blatantly confirm anything. It doesn't point to one flying saucer with a big red circle and say, "Hey, this is an alien, we know this is an alien, we asked for its name, it came from Sanhelos, and it comes in peace." Instead, the report highlights the hundreds of documented official reports of strange occurrences pilots and other government agents have seen in their service. The report confirms it's something we're looking at. It's done wonders to legitimize the talk around UFOs. First and foremost, to change the nomenclature from UFO, unidentified flying object, to UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, including the possibility of non-technological flying things. The report focuses primarily on whether or not repeated sightings of mysterious crafts are a threat or dangerous, which is a bit reductive, I think. Why do we have to assume aliens are a threat to us? Now, this isn't the first time the government has put direct resources into researching the possibility of alien life. Most famously probably is Project Blue Book, a CIA task force that ran from 1952 to 1959. But this is the first time an agency has been so outright forthcoming about sharing their findings with the public, renewing interest in UFO and UAPs. It's a very strong path forward to legitimate discussions, finding, and who knows what else.